Streaming. Oh, we're streaming. Okay. Let me move this over. And let me move this over. Okay, so today, we're going to be making a game live on stream. I haven't prepared much for this. I should have prepared more. I just made like the thumbnail, and then I was like, okay, let's do it. I was thinking about it. Let's just do it. Let's not think about it. Let's do it. So right now, before we get started, I want you to download Unity, and you also have to make a Unity account. Everything here. Let me just go through, and here, let's go Unity. Okay. I'm pulling up everything that I would want you to download really quick, just so we can get started and we don't have to worry about stuff in the future. And if you're watching this is really step by step. Okay. First, number one thing is going to be Unity. This is Unity. This is the game engine that we're going to use in order to make a game. And in order to download it, you have to make an account. Click download. It says, yeah, let's click download, and you say 30-day free trial, but that's for pro. That is not for like everything. That's not just to use it. It's just for pro. Download, and then you're going to get the Unity Hub. You're still going to have to make an account. So, make an account. Here, give me a second. Download. Yeah. Okay. The other thing is Writer. So Writer, for Unity, is just an IDE, and basically all an IDE is a thing that you download or use in order to write code. And you don't need this. Unity comes with its own IDE, or I think it's called, what is it called? Internal Development Environment? Or what does IDE stand for? IDE stands or Integrated Development Environment, IDE. So I like to use Writer, would recommend download it, and that option will become available to you when you are using Unity. Next thing I'm going to walk you through is making or installing the project. So whenever you download Unity, you're not actually going to download Unity. You're going to download a Unity Hub, and this is what it's going to look like. You're not going to see any of these because these are projects that I'm currently working on, and you see these this little warning button. Don't have to worry about that. In order to actually download Unity, you have to go to Installs, the Installs tab over here. Click on Installs, then Install Editor, and this is actually Unity. It's not just for Unity, Umini. It was originally made for Unreal. Oh, sorry. Well, Writer specifically, sorry. Hello, Mr. Keith. Writer specifically was used. I think Writer is a whole bunch of programs. It's not just for Unity, but Writer is for C#. So Writer, so C Lion is C++. So you don't know what you're talking about. I'm just joking. Where is it? This is .NET. Definitely .NET. No, just Unreal. Really? Actually, I don't know. I don't know the history. I actually don't know the history about Writer. Okay. You could be right. Okay, in order to download it, you just have to click on Install. I'm derail. Yeah. I want to keep this smoother in the beginning for people who are like watching this in the future. Okay, so when you install Unity, you're going to click on Install, and then there's going to open up a bunch of modules that you want to install. In this video or in this stream, I'm going to go from Unity Project to actually publishing it online. Oh, and that reminds me of another thing that you have to make an account for. You don't have to download anything though. Over here, you're going to see Microsoft Visual Studio Community 2022. This is the other IDE that is included with Unity. I personally just like Writer because it's nicer, and I'm going to use Writer in this video. So if you want to follow along really step by step, you should also use Writer. And then down here is the documentation. If you want to download that, you can. Documentation is available online. So if you're working offline, you can download it, and then you don't have to worry about going online to access that. So I'm going to install this, and I'm actually going to wait for this to install, even though, oh, real quick also, you shouldn't install that version that I just clicked on. You should install this version, Unity 6 6000.0.36 LTS, F1 LTS. The reason I'm downloading this one is just because if this is live and you're following step by step, hopefully the same amount of time it takes me to download something. Greetings, people. Let's make some game. Yeah. If you're just joining and you want to actually follow step by step, I think actually this is a good time. Just download Unity and download Unity Hub. And go back a few, like 2 minutes, and I'll explain that. And while this is waiting to download, I'm going to pull up some royalty-free music that I have on my computer. And then we'll have that in the background. What's up? And I guess we're just chilling for a little bit. Yo, what's up, Mr. Keith? What's up, Mr. Tryhard? How do I make a game in Game Maker? Go watch a different video. Well, is that it? That was fast? Oh, no. Okay, it's still waiting. Let me open up this. I don't know Game Maker. It would be interesting to learn other game engines. I learned a little bit of Godot already. I've been trying to learn Unreal, but it's just so, you know the guy, Steven Ulibarri. That guy, I think he's so detailed with his tutorials, but they take so long, and it's kind of boring. And it's just difficult to get to. Where is it? Okay, here it is. They put it out into different okay, blurred lines. What is this one? This is main. 60 hours is intense class to learn what I learned in 2. Yeah. It's just really, he goes in so long. I'm currently stuck with Unity, which is fine, but Godot is looking really interesting. Godot is a lot faster. That is something that I like about it. It's also not as powerful. I use Unity, and Unity, I mean, I made a whole video about it. I don't think Unity is a bad choice anymore. It used to be. But if you follow along with this video, you're going to have your own Unity game on itch. And while this is downloading, let me, sorry, I'm just trying to do this thing for the music. Let me show you itch. So itch is this. Itch is, I don't want to scroll down too much because they have NSFW games on itch also, so I don't want to, I don't want to get too, I don't want to show that. But itch is just a platform where you can upload games, and it's completely free. You just have to make an account. This is where I have hosted all of my games in the past. And by the way, Mr. Keith, this is his game, Megamart, is on here, and you can, this is just where you can host games, and they also play in browser if you set that up to play in browser. This game that we're making is going to be played in browser, and I'll walk you through that. Shameless plug. And yo, Keith has some of the best games on there. This game in particular, this is the one that I played, Road Mode. Holy shit, crazy for game gen, so good. This was for our, what is it called? Secret Santa. And here, let me show you one that you can actually play in browser. This one, 3D game, played in browser. Don't know about that, but okay. So you can see like this is an actual game that you can play. And look at that. Whoa, look at that. It's like an actual game. And this is just working on the browser. So I think that's pretty cool. Just upload whatever you want. Make it look nice, however you want it to look. It's still downloading. Still just waiting on this. I didn't misclick something, did I? And if you already have Unity installed, I guess we're just waiting here. Oh, right. I was supposed to be doing this thing for the music. So how you guys been? Why didn't you download? I have it. I have Unity installed right now. But I just wanted it to be on the same pace. So if somebody else is watching the live stream and there's like, okay, I don't know how to do anything, like maybe it's a bad idea. Maybe I should just go ahead and start. But yeah, I guess they could just skip ahead. I did want to, the reason why I wanted to show it is specifically because you have to download this WebGL build support. So I just wanted to include that in the video, but I guess I don't actually have to go through the process of actually downloading Unity. So maybe we'll just go ahead once I finish this music stuff. What song was I on? Uh-oh. Let me open this up. Dark Discovery Casual Jiggly. Give me a second. Play some Unreal Tournament. No, I don't want to get copyrighted. I'm just getting some, what is it called? Royalty-free music. But they put each song inside of its own folder, which is annoying. So I have to grab all of the songs and put them in a single folder so I can play all of them at the same time, or like in a loop, whatever. Did it finish? Cool. I think it finished. Well, let me uninstall this. Key Elements. Very creative with their names. What you up to, Mr. Keith? What you up to, Mr. Tryhard? What you guys doing today? Latte Art, Opus. Be extra spicy. Pearl. Okay, I think this is the last song, so let's grab them in here. And then let's play them all just at work. Brother, no way. Oh, there we go. Listen to that. Turn that down a little bit. Okay, better get comfortable with this music because we're going to be listening to it the whole stream. Just working on our never-ending projects. It's nice to have some more indies working on the background. Yeah, sure. That sounds great. Fantasizing about new season of Keith Makes Games. True. Yo, that would be crazy, having a whole narrative arc for your game. That would be so sick. Okay. So we have Unity installed. Let's start with a new project. So I'm going to click on over here into the projects, click on new project on the top right. And I'm actually going to change my location because this is going to be a 2D project. And I'm going to go to repos and then go to Unity 2D, select this one. And then we're going to name our project. Name it whatever you want. It's going to be a text adventure. So I'm going to call it Live Text Adventure. And the reason why we're doing a text adventure is just because I feel like this is a text adventure game really relies on your ability to write, and you can also add in your ability to draw also into this text adventure. And I think that's really great because it's not really coding focused, but you can still create like a really great game that people would want to play if you're a good writer, or if you're a good artist, you can have both of those inside of it, and it's not really code heavy, and it's really simple to code. So that's why we're doing a text adventure. Okay, so we're gonna have different templates, and you're gonna have 3 downloaded on your own, like already set for you. And the one we're gonna go with is Universal 2D. Universal just refers to the render pipeline. Universal render pipeline is just it's how the game like renders the images online for you. And the reason why there's 3 of them is because poor planning with Unity developers, I guess. But HDRP is for higher end devices and doesn't work with WebGL. Universal works with everything. And there's another one called built-in. I think if we look, it just says core. So 2D, let's see. 2D built-in render pipeline. And that's really more for if you're building out your own shaders and you want to build out like all the shader graphics on your own, you can use the built-in. Our case, we're not really going to use much of the rendering features beyond just like rendering basic stuff. So it's going to be Universal 2D because it's going to be a 2D game. It's going to be a text adventure. And then we're going to start it and you're going to see this screen and it's going to take a little while to build. I should have done this before because now we're just going to have to wait some more. Yeah. And I guess while we're waiting, maybe I should go ahead and build some stuff. This is the fruit game. Just some visual stuff just so you guys can see. Oh, this is the thumbnail. I made that real quick. Okay. So I'm not going to explain this right now because I'll explain it once we actually get to it. Okay. What is the language you are using? Are you using? Well, we're going to be using Unity. So we're going to be using C#. So if you're interested in learning a little bit of C#, we're going to be doing that right now as well. And if you want to follow along step by step, actually, this is good. This is why I wanted to do it. If you want to follow along, just go back to the beginning of the video and then just download Unity and everything. And we're building out the project right now, like literally right now. Okay. And right now I'm just making some visual stuff to explain. Dang, I want to use Rust in Unity. I don't know. I was talking with a previous game jam person that I was working with on a game jam. And he was telling me that you could build your own system and just import it into Unity. So it is possible. I'm sure you could do that with anything. Try Godot. I've used Godot. I made a game in Godot. I think it's cool. I like Unity better. 7, 8. Also, to be clear, this is more like a tutorial stream. It's not me working on one of my individual projects. If you're following along, you should hopefully learn some stuff. Try Lumberyard. I have not tried Lumberyard. One of the few ones I haven't tried out of all of them. I've tried every single game engine except for Lumberyard. Oh, okay, we're done. Okay, sick. So, this is our Unity game engine, and I don't want to dive into like each section because I feel like it's kind of, you're not going to remember it, okay? I think we just jump into making the game, and then hopefully you'll learn each section on its own. You have the hierarchy, scene, game, inspector, console, and project panel. Okay, so because we're going to, I wish, maybe I don't have to wear this. Okay, because we're going to, it feels weird just not hearing that music. Okay, because we're not going to, because we're uploading this onto Itch as a WebGL build, we have to do a couple things that might catch you if you're building for Unity and your mind's like, it's not working. Okay, this is what we have to do. We have to go over to the file, Let's go to build profiles, and this has changed in Unity 6, and we're going to switch from Windows over to web, and then we're just going to click switch platforms. And then this is just going to be so whenever we actually build out the game, it's going to be in Windows, or it's going to be in WebGL. Okay, it's going to take a little while. That's one of the things that I really liked about Godot, is the fact that it's so fast. It's so crazy fast. Like, it's so fast, it feels like it's broken. Refreshing to find anyone preferring Unity over Godot. I could later share your pros and cons. If you could later share your pros and cons, that would be awesome. Yeah, I think, I mean, we're waiting for it right now. I think my pros, in terms of like payment and like stuff, is like it's open source, so it's free, so you don't have to pay anybody to use it. But probably the thing that the reasons why I don't like Godot as much is because the whole tree system, which if you really abstract it out and think about Unity that way, Unity does have that same system where you have like different parents and then children, and everything is forced that way. But in Godot, they really strictly enforce it. Also, I don't like GDScript, just the language. It's very much the biggest thing that I don't like about it is the way that they force indent. I hate force indents. Like, I want to be able to write indents my own way. Okay, sorry. But I think a lot of it really comes down to just personal preference, because I've worked with Unity for so long, and I haven't touched. I didn't grow up using Godot. You know, I learned Unity in high school for like one semester, and I did not like it. I was like cheating in that. Okay, sorry. I should explain what I'm doing. Okay, so because we're uploading to Itch, it requires that we don't have any compression method on any methods of compression on our game. So it has to be uncompressed. So in order to change that, we're going to go to Edit and then Project Settings, and then we're going to look for Player. Yes. Okay, and then in Player, you can see that we have a few different things. We have the company name. So if you want to change this to whatever you're working as, you can do that here, and then you can change the product name, and this is going to be the name of the game. Whenever it's used in any like sort of file structure, this is where it's going to be changed. And the same thing with this. If your name is Veras or whatever you put your name here, it's going to generate the file structure on the actual person's computer, and any of your projects that you use in the future is going to be under this folder. So for me, I'm just going to change it. Veras Studios. Okay, and then we also have splash images. This is new in Unity 6. We can actually turn this off so nobody knows that you're using Unity. This was a big thing. You used to have to pay for this feature of turning off the splash screen. Now you don't have to. So you can turn that on or off however you want to use it. And then over here, the publishing settings. This is the thing that we're actually going to look for. This is the decompression. We don't want any compression format. By default, it's Brotli. And then we have gzip, but we're just going to disable it. And the reason why we're disabling it is because Itch does not like compression, and your build will just not work. There is no save button, so once you change it, you could just exit out, and now we're ready to go. Okay. The very first thing that we're going to do is we're going to make the whole UI for the game, and it's a text adventure, right? So a few different things that we would want in a text adventure is going to be just like the piece of text that we're actually reading. So we're going to go over to the hierarchy. We're going to right click, or you could click up here on the top left, and then you go under UI, and then we're going to click on canvas. Now this canvas is, the reason why we're clicking canvas is because in Unity, in order to display any sort of UI, there's two different UI systems. This is the old one technically, but the new one isn't as fully featured, and in my opinion, it's just a little more complicated to work with. If you're coming from web development, maybe you'll be used to it. this is simpler. Like it's just like the way that everything else works in the game is how this works with the UI. Except for one difference with UI, you have to have a canvas, and whenever you click over here canvas, it will generate two things. It'll generate the canvas, which is this. If we look in the inspector panel, a lot of stuff, looks a little scary. You don't have to worry about it too much. The only thing that we're going to change is we're going to change it from constant pixel size to scale with screen size, and this is going to try to replicate the size of the base that you're trying to work with, which is going to be 16 by 9. But the most people have computers, they work with the most common resolution on a computer, according to Steam survey, is going to be 1920 by 1080, and then this canvas is just going to scale to try to match that. And then I always change it to width, so I always change it to height, so the height is going to be the thing that is going to be matched the most. And then the edges, if a screen is shorter or smaller, well, if the aspect ratio is different, if the aspect ratio is different, it will just have these like blank edges at the edge, which is preferable to having like stuff cut out. You don't want anything cut out. And that's basically all we have to do here. And now, and also we have an input system, an event system, and this is the thing that is actually registering your input from your devices. So if you're using a mouse or whatever, this is the thing that is actually picking that up. Okay, so we're going to create a piece of text. So we're going to right click on canvas, and then we're going to go to UI, and then we're going to click on text Mesh Pro. And then as soon as we click that, we get this pop-up. This pop-up just says like, oh, you don't have Text Mesh Pro installed. Just because for Text Mesh Pro first initially started off as its own system that you had to buy, but then Unity bought it out and integrated it into their system. So now whenever you make a new Unity project, you have to download this because Unity still has its own legacy system. I think they might have actually took it up, but this is the default now, but you still have to download it even though it's the default. And then over here, you have import TMP examples. TMP just stands for Text Mesh Pro, and examples and extras just includes more fonts. So if you want to have more fonts, you can also import that, and also downloads examples of how to use Text Mesh Pro. But we don't have to worry about that. You're watching this live stream. So once you have that done, you're going to see, whoa, look, we have text on the screen. In order to center our image on the scene panel, because this is the game panel, so this is what we're going to be seeing in game. I'm going to lock this to 16 by 9. And then I'm going to turn off low resolution. You can see it fixes it. Doesn't look weird anymore. In order to center this on the scene panel, we're going to click on canvas, and then we're going to hover our mouse over the scene panel and then press F. And there we go. This is our scene panel. And then this is our text. And then over here, if we click on text, if we scroll down in the inspector panel over here, let me drag this down, you'll see that we have a bunch of different properties, and this is probably going to be the part, let me also, I was going like, why does it look like that? It's going to be shader dry mode. Okay. There's going to be a lot of stuff. Looks a little bit intimidating. You don't have to be intimidated. A lot of it is just like the formatting options that you would see like in a word processor like Microsoft Word or whatever. You have bold, what is it called? Italicized, underlined, and then strike through. And then these are different capitalization methods, and they can change your fonts over here where it says font asset. If you click on this circle, these are all the example or the extra options that the TMP downloaded. So there's Anton, there's a bunch of different fonts, and you can also look for your own fonts, and maybe we'll end up doing that later. But for now, this is going to be, and then this big box is going to be where our text where we actually have to write in our text for the story. So this is the story text. You can see it wraps around because the thing is really small. So in order to make it bigger, you click on text TMP on the hierarchy panel, and then you can click on T and then just drag out the blue balls, the blue circles, in order to make it however big you want to make it. And you could drag it around and it will automatically pin to wherever you place it. So I'm going to place it in the center, and then I'm going to hold Alt and drag in order to, okay, I'm going to click, then hold Alt and drag, and then pull this wider. So it's going to expand evenly on both sides. So click, hold Alt, and then drag to be however wide you want it to be. And then this, we're going to grab this and then duplicate it, and then you'll see this is the entire length of the piece of text. So this is how it's going to be displayed. And you can see you don't really have to worry about the height, because the only thing that it's really looking for is the width. So you can adjust the height if you want, just for it to be more in line with how visually it's going to look later, but not a huge worry. And then over here you can change the size. The average body size for a web page is going to be 16. So you could change that to 16, but you see, looks really small. So I think 36 is fine, especially since usually in games, this is the only application that is up on a person's computer. And I think most people, unsure about this, I think most people only have one monitor. So this is going to take up the entire view space of a person whenever they're playing your game. So that's this. Now we're going to set up our buttons, and buttons are just buttons. I don't know where I was going with that. Buttons are just going to be the way that we interact with our story in order to click through and select different options. So we're going to give the player different options to navigate through the story. Okay, so in order to make a button, we're going to right click, and then under UI, we're going to hover over UI and then click on Button Text Mesh Pro. And then that is going to generate a button in the middle of our screen. And if you see, it's really small, but we can drag it down. Here, let's zoom in a little bit. Let's drag it down, and then let's make it wider, just like that. And then we can make it the same width, make it taller. And then with our actual button, if we look in the hierarchy panel, and then we click the drop down for the text, we can click on the text. And then instead of having it center aligned, if you look at this alignment, we have it both on the center. Oh, actually. Oh, okay. I just have to remember that I'm in the bottom right, so I have to move myself up a little bit. Or actually, I can drag myself over to the console panel, because I feel like the console is not going to be as important. So we have the inspector, we have center aligned, and we have top aligned. So we want to keep it centered aligned here in the middle. You see this says center, this says middle. We're going to change this to left. You can see it puts the text all the way on the left side. But we want to give it some spacing on the left side. So in order to give it spacing, we're going to change this value right here where it says left. And based off of UX, you usually want to base all of your spacing based off of a set amount. And usually that's 8 in web design. There's reasons for that in web design. In your game, it can be whatever number you want, but you should have a number. So if you want it to be 10 to make it easy, you can do 10. I stick with 8 just because that's what I'm used to, because I studied UX. Okay, so I'm going to start off with 8 pixels, and then you see it's still over here in the game view. It still looks too small, like not enough space. So let's add 16. Still slightly not enough space, and then the next is going to be 24, and now this feels more comfortable. You want a little bit of a white space for your text so it doesn't like mash, and then we're also going to change this to bold. So we're going to click this B, and then this is our button. And now if we click play, look, wait. Oh my gosh, my hairline. Oh my gosh, I'm going bald. Okay. Okay. When we click and we actually click on it, you'll see that it already has this functionality of having this hover effect. The hover effect is really subtle, or it just might not be there. No, it's there. It's really subtle. And then whenever you click on it, it will actually like gray out a little bit. And then, yeah, it just has like all of that effect already set for you. And that just comes with Unity's button system. Okay. So we have our button, we have our text. We actually have to start making the code to actually run everything. So the way that this is going to work is that basically we're going to create a piece of data that holds a few things. It's going to hold our story text, and then it's going to hold every single option in our game for that specific story block, right? So we have a piece of story text, and then every single option is going to be a part of that block. So we have, and then let me say this again. We have the story text, we have the options, and all of that is going to encapsulate into one story block. Now, in order to make that, we're going to make a new script. So we're going to go over here into our assets panel, and we can change this to 2-column layout because I think that's the default. And then we're going to right click on assets, and then we're going to hover over create, and then we're going to make a new folder. The reason why we're making a new folder is just to keep everything organized. Okay, so we're going to call this scripts, because this is going to be where we write all of our code, our Unity scripts. And then we're going to right click, we're going to click into our scripts folder, and then we're going to right click, and then we're going to hover over create. And they changed it before. I think before it was called C# script. Now they changed it to mono behavior script. There's a reason for that, but it's more like advanced and it's not really super important, but just click on mono behavior script. And then this is important. You don't want to click anything else. Don't click anything else. Just relax, don't click anything. We're going to immediately, after we click that button, we're going to immediately start typing, and we're going to name it the thing that we're trying to make. So in our case, we're trying to make a story block because of what I described, right? So we're going to type in story, no spaces, block, and then we're also going to write in the suffix. That's a suffix, right? The thing that comes at the end. We're going to write in the suffix SO. And SO just stands for scriptable object. You don't have to write this. And it's like, what is a scriptable object? Well, I'll explain it right now. We're going to open this up, and then it's going to pop open our IDE. And I'm still using Microsoft Visual Studio. And this is how that looks. Let me actually close out of this. And if you're using Writer, like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, you would go to edit, you would go to preferences, and then I changed the UI scaling just so you guys could see. You're going to go to external tools, and then in this external script editor, we're going to change this from Visual Studio 2022 over to Writer 2024.3. And then we're going to exit out, and then we're going to open this again. And then now that we have we changed it over to the Writer IDE, you're going to see it's going to open up, and Writer is going to have a little bit of a different look, and it's going to have a lot more features. Say yes, trust, and open, because this is your code. You're literally writing the code. So if you don't trust yourself, who do you trust? Okay, so this is your code. It's going to pop up a bunch of stuff. It says Microsoft Defender may affect IDE. That's okay. Just exclude folders, and then saying that there's an update available. Yeah. Okay. There's an update available. I'm not going to update that right now because we're in the middle of this. Okay. So I'm going to make this bigger. And I think in order to zoom in, you just hold Control and then zoom in like this. I'm just making it really big just so you guys can see it. Okay, sick. So this is code that is generated for you by Unity. So So we're going to go through this. This top line right here, this is called a namespace. And basically all a namespace is just a bunch of code that has been written. And whenever you say using, you're saying like, oh, I want to use that code. And this code all exists inside of Unity already, but we're just using the using statement. So using Unity Engine to signify to Unity like, hey, I do want to use this code. Like this is the piece of code that I want to use. So we're going to go over here. We're going to see public class, then script story block SO. This story block SO is a thing that we just wrote down. So this is going to be the name of our script. And then we have this colon and then mono behavior. Colon mono behavior. This section just is, okay, there is other code that exists inside of the Unity Engine namespace. And mono behavior is one of the classes. So this whole thing is a class that has like pre-written code for us. And whenever we do this colon, then a name of a class, we're saying, hey, I want to take all of that code and basically put it inside of our code without having to worry about writing that code myself. Now, this presents a little bit of a problem because right now, immediately, we already see the problem is what is inside of that code. We don't know. Right now, we don't know. The reason why they did it that way is because we also don't have to know, right? If we want to do certain stuff, it's going to be helpful to know what's inside of mono behavior. But at the moment, if we're doing something really basic, it's not important to have all of that information presented to us. But that is a downside whenever it's called inheriting from a different class or from something else. If you're inheriting from somewhere, it is a problem that you're not going to know, or you're going to have to go into that code in order to see what's there in order to actually build out, whatever you want to build out. And now this, so you'll see this green text is a comment, and it's signified by this double slash in the beginning. So if we write something over here, you're going to see it turns red and white because the code, because writer is trying to interpret the thing that we wrote as code, but it's not code, it's just text. And the reason why we would want something like this, in order to turn this into a comment, you would just do // in the beginning, and now this is turned into a comment, and this is basically telling our computer, hey, ignore this piece of text, this is just for me. And that's what comments are. Comments are just pieces of text that are just for you as a developer to understand more of what the code is doing. So over here, you see start is called once before the first execution of update after the mono behavior is created. Just means that start is called once before update. And then update is called once per frame. So frames per second, this is called every single frame. Every single frame, whatever we write in here is going to happen. And then this is only going to be called once at the start of our game, right? So this is going to be, if we need to set anything up, we will write it in start. And if we want something to happen every single frame, we would write it in update. For right now, we don't want either of these. We want to get rid of them. And we're also going to get rid of mono behavior because the reason why we wrote SO at the end over here is because we want to change this from a mono behavior script over to a scriptable object script. And basically all that does is a scriptable object is just like an actual thing that we can create inside of Unity to hold information. And what was the thing that we're going to make right now? We're making a story block. This information that we want to hold is going to be our story text and then each option inside of our story block, right? So in order to change this over to a scriptable object, to inherit from a scriptable object, we're going to type in scriptable object, just like that. Look at that. And this piece of code still does come from Unity Engine, so we don't have to use any other using statements. We just use Unity Engine because it's the same code base that we're pulling from. It's just a Unity Engine. Okay. Now, in order to write a scriptable object, we a scriptable object is basically like a template of all the information that we want inside of this scriptable object. So we're not going to be writing the actual story, we're writing the template of what we want. So in our case, we want story text, and then we want options for that story. Okay, in order to do that, we're going to write first the data type for our story text. And a data type just refers to like what type of data we're holding. In this case, we just want text, right? So you would write text, but text isn't a data type. The data type that we're looking for is called string. And then after we write the data type, we want to write the name of our variable. So in our case, it's going to be story text, just like that. And you'll see that Writer included this private in the beginning automatically for us, which is great, but we actually don't want it to be private because we want the Unity editor to be able to access this variable and also anything else, any other code that we write. We want to access this variable. We want to change this from private, which means nothing else beyond this class. So right now, the only thing that can interact with the story text is going to be any other code that is written within this story block, right? But we don't want that to be the case. We want the Unity editor to be able to access it so we can actually write inside of our story text. So we're going to change this from private to public. And then we're going to save that. And then we're also going to add in what is called a... Man, I felt so confident going into that sentence, going like, okay, this is what it's called. What is it called? It's called an attribute. That's what it's called. An attribute is just like a piece of code that somebody writes. In this case, it's going to be Unity, that Unity wrote for us. I think it's Unity. That basically affects our code in a way, and just some way. And usually attributes affect the code in a way that we can interact with the Unity engine with our code. So the attribute that we're going to make is called create asset menu. Look at this. Oh my gosh, this is why I like Writer. Writer is so great. It like fills in all the information we need for us. It's so this is the number one reason why I use Writer, because like I already knew this, but like it's still nice to see everything that we want written out. Okay. So create asset menu has a few different parameters that it takes in. So we have the file name and the menu name. So the file name is going to be whenever we create a new story block, what do we want it to be called? So in our case, we're going to change the file name to new story block. And the reason why we're naming it that is just because maybe just to signify like, hey, this is a new story block. You should probably rename it to something else so it's not called new story block, right? And then it's going to be the menu name. And now this menu name is going to be how it appears inside of our Unity editor, and it's going to appear inside of a contextual menu. And if you're not familiar with what a contextual menu is, this is a contextual menu. Whenever you right click, it pops up a contextual menu. So this menu name is going to be how it appears inside of that thing. So inside of that thing, we just want to call it a story block, right? And then we're going to save it. This is the bad thing about Unity. This is one of the reasons why Godot is better, is just because it's faster at compiling. Okay, so we're going to go over to assets. We're going to right click. We're going to head over to create. And then over here at the very bottom, you see that we have this thing called story block. And that's a thing that we just made right now. And then this is our story block right here. Beginning story block. That's it right there. And we can make it smaller. See, that's it. And if we go over to our inspector, this story text is the thing that we wrote inside of our code. You can see right here. Story text, I wrote it a little bit weird. The reason why I wrote it this way was just because this is how you usually write a variable. Whenever you write a variable name, you cannot have spaces. So we can't do this or else it's going to throw an error, right? So it has to be one thing. So in order to separate each word from each other, we usually will write the first letter lowercase, and then the first letter of the next word uppercase. And this is going to be the pattern that we keep throughout the whole thing. So if we wanted to call this beginning story text, that's how that would look like. And this is called camel casing. So we're going to get rid of this, and we're just going to call it story text. But the reason why I wanted to come back and show you is that even though we wrote it this way, Unity understands that this is the normal convention of how we write code, how we write variables. So Unity will automatically convert this format into a more readable format here. So you say it's just called story text. This is right here. Got to go. Need to find some food. Thanks for stream. No worries. Good luck on your projects, brother. Okay. Right here is where you can write your story. And immediately we're running into this issue where we can't really see the rest of our text because it's getting cut off by the word wrap. Right? So this is one problem that we want to solve. In order to solve it, we are going to use another attribute. And that attribute is going to be called text area. And this just basically makes a area of text for us to write in. So if we just save that and then go back to the Unity editor, you'll see, hey, look at that. We have a whole text area that we can actually write in our Unity inspector. Okay. Next thing is going to be our options. So this is also going to be another piece of string. It's going to be another piece of text, so it's going to be a string. So we're going to do public string option 1, right? Public string option 2, public string option 3. Now we have 3 options. Now here we go. Now if you want to add the text area to this as well, you can do that. In my case, I don't really care to do that because I want the options to sort of be really short. So I know for me personally, for the game that we're making right now, that each option is going to be just really short, you know? So it's not really important for it to be super long, so we're not going to add that attribute, but you can to yours if you want to. Now, let's say a guy approaches you on the street. Okay, we want a few options. We run away, greet him. I can't think of something else, but we have 3 options here. Oops, sorry. But we have 3 options here, right? But we're only using 2 options, so we don't need every single option in order to complete our story block, but it's still giving us that option to write in the 3rd option. So this could be fine if you know for a fact that you're going to have 2 options or 3 options for every single story block. But if you don't know, if you're not sure, or if you want to have different number of options for each story block, this isn't going to work, because what if we need 4 options? Then we would have to go into the code and then type in public string option 4, right? Now that we have 4 options, now we can write 4 options if we want 4 options. But what if in the next story block we do something like you died? Okay, then we do start again or end game, right? You don't need any more options than just those 2 options, right? So maybe in the previous block we wanted 4, but in this block we only want 2. So how do we fix this problem? The way we fix that problem is by going into here, and we're going to create this thing called an array. And basically what an array is what I made before, is a bunch of data put next to each other. So in our case, we just wanted 2 options, right? And in this case, those 2 options are called, what did I click on? those two options are start again and end game. So, sorry. This is going to be start again. This is going to be end game. So these are our two options, and we can add or remove these blocks like however many we want, right? So in order to make this array where we can have these blocks and have multiple ones and add them and remove them, we're going to, in order to make this array, because this is an array, right? Just a bunch of pieces of options of text aligned next to each other. In order to do that, we just need one of these, and we still want the data type. In this case, we do want a string because we're still holding text, and then we're going to make an open bracket and a close bracket, and then this turns it into an array. What type of array is it? It's an array of strings. And then over here, we're going to change it from options to options, right? And now this is going to generate Unity, really crazy again. Unity automatically knows that this is an array, and it knows that we want to have a variable number of options inside of our Unity editor. So when we go back to our Unity editor, it will generate new UI for us just by adding in these two blocks, just like this. Then we see we have a drop down now, and we have a list is empty. In order to add an option, we just click plus, plus. Now we have end game, and we have start again. Just like that. And then if we want to make in a new story block, so actually we should probably rename this to ending story block or dead story block. We go back down here into the assets, we right click, we go over to create, and then at the bottom we have another story block, and we're going to change this to beginning story block, which is right here. So let's say our dead story block just has these two options, but let's say that we want our beginning story block is something more open, right? We want like a guy walks towards you on the street, right? And then we can add however many options we want now. So let's say that we want prepare to fight or something. Say greet him. Let's do another one. Run away. So you see, immediately this just solved the problem of having different options, because this beginning story block has 3 options and this dead story block has 2 options. Great, great, this is great. How do we this is basically like halfway of like everything that we need inside of our story blocks. Pretty much done with this, right? How do we get this information that we wrote on this story block and put it onto our screen, like onto our UI? Because if we press play right now, it doesn't do anything, right? I'm gonna sit down, sorry. This is taking longer than I thought it was gonna take. It's already been an hour, oh my god. Okay. So you could see, like, we didn't really do or write anything in order to turn this from this story block and actually display it on the screen over here. So in order to change that, to rectify that, we're going to write some code that does grab this information and display it onto our screen. And we're going, in order to do that, we're going to make a new script. So we're going to go into scripts and we're going to right click. We're going to create a new MonoBehaviour script and call it Game Manager, just like that. And we're going to press enter. And then it's going to reload. Give it a second. Okay, and this is our Game Manager. And in this case, we are going to use MonoBehaviour, so we can keep that. And we are going to use start, and we are going to use I actually don't think we're going to use update. But we are going to use start, and I'm just going to write private in front of it because we don't need anything else inside of it, and we're not going to use update, so let's get rid of that. Try to make a game like Moonshire right now, like right now. I've never heard of Moonshire, but interested to know, what is Moonshire? Write it down, let me know. Okay, so the very first thing that we want to do inside of our start is we want to first of all, the very first thing that we want to do is we want to grab our story block, right? So this is our story block, and we want to get this information. So how do we get this information inside of this code? The way we do that is by creating a new variable, a private variable, to hold this information. And this data type, so we're going to make a new variable, right? Before we wrote string, now we're not going to write string. We're going to write this class. So story block is going to be here. And then we're going to name it something like beginning story block. Actually, let's get rid of that. And then when we go over, give it a second. When we click on our game manager, you'll see that this is now inside of this code. But we want it to be inside over here. So in order to put this script over here, we can't just drag it. We have to right click over here. Then we have to create empty, or you could click on the top right and then click create empty, or Control-Shift-N. That's another option, Control-Shift-N. And just like here, we're going to type in game manager. And then this is where our code is going to exist. So in order to put our code onto this game manager that we put in our hierarchy, we're going to click and drag our script onto here. And then you'll see in the inspector that it generates right there. If we want to just drag it directly into an inspector, we can do that also. Or the other option is to click on add component and then type in game manager. And then there it is. This is the code. If we look at our assets and then we go to our story block, let's actually make a new script for our story blocks. Let's go to folder, story blocks. And then let's put in all of our story blocks inside of here because we're going to make a lot more story blocks. You see that we have our story text and then we have our options over there. The reason why we're able to see it inside of our inspector is because we set it to public, right? So this is public and our beginning story block is not public, right? Our beginning story block is private. So in order for us to be able to see it inside of the inspector, we have to change it from private to public. Public. Just like that. Then we're going to save that and then go back to Unity. And then we should see a new field for us to just drag in our beginning story block. See, yep, it's right there. Beginning story block. And we're going to drag in our beginning story. Oh, I didn't mean to click on it. Just click and drag. You don't want to click on it or else it's going to change the inspector. And then there you go. Now we have a reference to our beginning story block. And then we also want to change this piece of text. So how do we change that piece of text? How do we do that? Because it's like, what do we do? Like right here, if I was just brand new, I'd be stuck. I'd be like, okay, how do I get this information from here over onto this piece of text? And the way we do it is by referencing this TextMesh Pro text UI. Now, the way you do that is in code, we would have to have another variable like this, public, and we want to reference that text. But what is that? What is that reference? Like, what is that called? It is called TMP underscore text. And then you're going to see over here, it says in TM Pro. And this is just saying, like, if you want to use this class, you have to use the TM Pro namespace. And again, this is a namespace, right? So if we just write this and then we write story text, just like that, it's going to throw an error because say, hey, you're missing a reference. So in order to fix that, you just write in using TM Pro, just like that. And then this fixes the error. Now we don't have an error anymore. And the nice thing with Writer is that the reason why you saw that there is because if you do it again, TM text, and just press enter, it automatically adds that for you. You can see that it added it above this Unity engine. It doesn't matter where you put it. It just matters that you have it on the top, somewhere at the top over here. You could have it below it, above it, just as long as it's before everything else, then you're good. You know, just as long as it's before your class, you're good. And then this is going to be a reference to our story text, just like that. It's public. And then if we click on Game Manager, you see we have this other field called story text. Now, in order to drag this over, we just drag it over and then there we go. Now, this is the part where it gets a bit tricky because we want to also add in more buttons or less buttons depending on how many options we have, right? So if we have one option, we just want one button. And if we have multiple options, we want multiple buttons, right? Actually, before we get into that, let's just see a guy walks towards you on the street. If we click on play, oh, it doesn't do anything. The reason why it doesn't do anything is because we didn't actually write anything. We didn't actually do anything with the information. The only thing that we did inside of the code right now is we just said, hey, I want to have reference to this piece of data, and I want to have reference to this piece of data. But we haven't actually done anything with the data yet, right? So in order to change the text, so this right here, this encode, the TMP text, is a reference to this specific component. You see that? And this Game Manager is a component. This TMP text is a component. And there's a bunch of different options over here in this component. Let's minimize this. We have this enable RTL editor. We have this actual text. We have text style. We have font asset. We have material preset. We have font style, font size, auto size. We have so many different options. Vertex color. So many different options. It's crazy. It's crazy. How do we just get access to the text? In order to do that, we just write in story text. And then we just type in text. And this is going to be a reference specifically to this section. So now we can write whatever we want inside of here. So in order to change what's inside of here, we just say equal to welcome to the Game Manager. Sure. And then we're going to save that and then go back to the Unity editor. And then when we click play, we should see it say welcome to the Game Manager at the top. And it does, welcome to the Game Manager. But we don't want it to say that. We want it to say our beginning story block, right? We want to get this story text and put that here. So how do we do that? In order to do that, we get access to this story block that we made, and it's going to be the beginning story block. And then we're going to do exactly what it says, add in story text, just like that. And now, whenever we click play, we should see this piece of text is now on this screen, which is cool. This is really cool. This is like the basis of the game development, you know? We wrote something and then now it's on the screen. That's pretty cool. I think it's pretty cool. And if we decide like, hey, we want to change this to guy and he's really scary, you'll see it doesn't update it over here. The reason why it's not updating it over here is because we're writing it in start. And start only runs a single time. It runs one time before any update is called. If we wanted to update every single frame, we could do this in update. And now if we click, if we save that, go back to our Unity editor. And basically the only thing that I did was I changed this from start to update. And update, like I said, update is called every frame if the mono behavior is enabled, right? So we have that there. Now if we click play, and if we change this, and he looks mean. Whoa, look at that. Look at that. It updates automatically. And this updates automatically. Really cool. But in order to be able to update like this, we have to have the Unity editor open. And we don't really need that for the game, because we're just going to write all of our text before we even publish the game online. So all of the text is going to be written anyways for us. So we don't need to do it every update. We just have to do it at the beginning of our game, only a single time. So this does have the con of not being able to update during runtime, but we don't need that because the text should already exist, because we're not going to be updating the game when somebody else is playing it, right? We're going to write all of our story and then change it in the future. And then if we want to update it in the future, we can just on our computer update it and then send that out over to itch whenever we make a new change. Okay, this is cool, but this doesn't solve our options thing. This is the options thing that we were talking about before, right? With the buttons, we only have a single button, and we have 3 different options over here. So how do we make more buttons for every single option that we have? In order to do that, we have to change this button into a prefab. So in order to make it into a prefab, I'm going to go over here to our assets. I'm going to make a new folder, and I'm going to call this prefabs. Prefabs right here. I'm going to click inside of it. And in order to turn this button into a prefab, I'm going too fast. What is a prefab? A prefab is basically like a template of a game object. And these are all game objects over here. These are all game objects. So if we want to turn any of these into a template, we make it into a prefab. And that's it. A prefab just has all of these components and all of this information just saved as a template, right? So we want this button to be saved as a template. And I keep saying the same thing. In order to make this into a prefab, we're just going to click and drag the button and drag it into our project panel. So we're going to drag our button from the hierarchy panel and drag it into our project panel into the prefabs folder that we just made. And we're going to change this name to button option. Just like that. Or I think a better way, option button. Okay. You don't have to change the name. That's just for organization's sake. This is change the name of the prefab. And now this changes it into a template. And now we can update this. We can create as many of this game object as we want whenever we have a new option, right? So there's a problem with that. Let me duplicate this button. If we click duplicate, you see it doesn't add the other button onto the screen. And the reason why that's happening is because it is adding it, but it's adding it exactly with all the same information. That means the X, the Y position, it's all the same. So if we drag this button down, if we drag this button down, you'll see, oh, there's the other button. And here's the other button, right? So we have all these buttons, but they're resting on top of each other. So this is a problem. So let me click on it and then click delete on my keyboard. Click delete, click delete. In order to fix that, to mitigate this problem, we're going to make another game object and have it as the parent and add in a horizontal layout component. In order to do that, we're going to right click on it. We're going to create empty parent or Control Shift G. And then we're going to say, call this a button organizer. Now, in order to add this horizontal layout component, or is it vertical layout component? In order to add this vertical layout component, we don't have to write any code. It already exists inside of Unity. We're going to click on button organizer, going to click on add component. We can exit out, delete over here. And then we're going to go over to layout. You see it's organized into different sections. We're going to click into layout, and then we have a bunch of different options over here. And the one that we're looking for is going to be vertical layout group. And then as you can see, nothing really happened. But as soon as we add in a new button, you'll see that it generates it right underneath the other button. And now you can change different values over here. So if we want to have more spacing, we can just add more spacing over here. And like I mentioned before, you want to have a static set of spacing. And before we already mentioned 8. So we're going to keep with 8. You can use 10 if you want. It doesn't really matter. Web development's usually 8. So I'm going to keep it by 8. You can see this separates every single button by 8 pixels. You could do 16, 24. I think for me personally, if we click on button organizer, then press W, we get this this green arrow and red arrow, and we're just going to drag this up. I think 24 is a good spacing. If you want to make it less, you can. 16 I think is also fine. 24, maybe 16. Okay, now we have all of our buttons, but we're not automating our creation of it, right? We have to create it inside of our game before we're, how do I say this? Okay, over here in our story blocks, you can see that we have different number of options, but we don't have a different number of buttons. So in this case, we have 3 options, but we have 4 buttons, right? It's basically the same issue that we ran in before. How do we fix this? How do we fix it so that we don't have 4 buttons when we only need 3, or in this one we have 4 buttons but we need 2, or let's say we made another story block, right? Here's story block, other story block, and then this one has 5, you know? Now you see that there's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, but there's 5 different options, but we don't have 5 buttons. Actually, that's a good point. So let's add in another. Yeah, 5 is fine. I'm pretty sure we're not going to add more than even 3 options. So just 5 is whatever. But let's say that in your game, you did want 5 options, you know? How do we automatically delete and make new buttons every time we get into a story block? That's a tough question. So in order to do that, let me delete the story block. We're going to have a reference to this prefab, right? Because it's a template. And in order to have that reference over here, you can see that we didn't like make a new script or anything. This is just like, we just made a game object and we made it into a prefab. And in order to have that as a reference, we just call it a game object, right? Game object. And then this is going to be our button prefab. Just like that. And then when we go back and look into our game manager, you'll see that we have this option for game object. And if we go into prefabs, we can just click and drag this button option over here. And now we have it saved as a prefab. So now we can get rid of all of these. Oh, but that's another problem. We want our buttons to be created inside of this button organizer, because if we don't have it inside of the button organizer, like if we have it out here, then it's not going to automatically organize our buttons, right? So in order to save it onto here, like in order to create it inside of this button organizer, we also have to save this transform and say, hey, make our buttons inside of this. So we're also going to have a reference for that. and that's going to be over here. We're going to say public, and we're not going to call it a game object. We're looking for the transform. So we're going to say transform, and then we're going to say button parent, because this is going to be the parent of where all of our buttons are created, right? Now, we have our different options over here. Okay, how do we do this? Let's go ahead and... Okay, let's break this down step by step. Let's say that we have 4 buttons right now. At the beginning of our game, we don't want to have any buttons. We just want to delete all of them. So in order to delete all of them, we have to make a script to delete every single button inside of this button parent. So in order to do that, let's make a new method. So this is basically like a new function of how, of something that we want to do. So let's call it private, and then void is going to be the return type. It's a little confusing of what a return type is, but at the moment, not super important. It's just going to be void for most of the time. For us, we're going to use void. We're going to use void most of the time. Okay, and then we're going to name our method the thing that we want to do. And in this case, we want to delete all buttons, just like that. And then we add in the open parentheses and the closing parentheses. And then we add in the open curly brace and the closing curly brace. And then inside of here, we want to get our button parent. So we're going to go get button parent. And then inside of our button parent is going to have a different number of children, right? And we want to delete all of those children. In order to do that, we're going to make a loop, because we don't know how many buttons are going to be inside of that parent, right? So let me actually look if there's like a built-in like delete. No, okay. So in order to make a loop, we're going to... Okay, I'm trying to think. There's a simple way to write this, and then there's a more complicated way to write this. And the simple way is the way that I would personally use it. But if I do the simple way, we're going to have to use a more complicated way anyways. So maybe it's better to just use it the more complicated way, since we're going to be using it, so you don't have to learn 2 different ways. And then in the future, maybe after, I'll show you the simpler way, just so you know. If you want to change it to a simpler way, you can. Okay, so in order to make a loop and go through, we're going to write for, and then look over there. It's already giving us what we want. We're going to name our iterator. This is called an iterator, and this is going to be where we want our button, where we want our loop to start with a different number. It's a little confusing. And then we're going to type in our statement to say, when do we want our code to run? So as long as I is less than button parent dot child count. No. Yes. Yeah. And then we're going to do I++, which just means that every time we finish a loop, we're going to increase this number by 1. So, oh man, this might not work. Let's just see if it works or not. We'll see. So inside, it's already giving us the code that we want to do. So we want to destroy, we want to first get access to the child. So we're going to get access to get to button parent, and then get child. And then we're looking for the ith position, or the whatever position, the position of I. So the first time we go through the loop, this I is going to be equal to 0. But then since we're doing this, the next time we go through the loop, the I position is going to be 1, right? And since the way that Unity handles it is that Unity automatically numbers these from 0 to 1. So this is going to be 0, this is going to be 1, this is going to be 2, this is going to be 3. And then because of this child count, this child count right now is equal to 4, right? Because we have 4 buttons. And then I, every time we finish a loop, we increase I by 1. So I right now is equal to 0. So is 0 less than 4? Yes. Is 1 less than 4? Yes. Let's do the loop again. Is 2 less than 4? Yes. Is 3 less than 4? Yes. Is 4 less than 4? No, 4 is equal to 4. So we won't run the loop again, right? So that's basically how the loop works. And we're going to get the game object inside of this. Oh. Actually, yeah. Let's instead of delete, let's change it to disable. Disable all buttons. Okay. So, inside of our game object, what we want to do, instead of deleting it, we're just going to turn it off, basically. So we're going to do set active and then false. And this is just saying, do we want it to be active? No, we want it to not be active. So we're setting the active to false. And basically all that's doing, if we look inside of our game object, give it a second to recompile. We click on option. This little button over here, this is the set active button. If we click on this, it doesn't delete it. It just turns it off, basically, right? So we could do that to all of them. And if we do that to all of them, you'll see that we no longer have any buttons. And because our button organizer is here, like we don't have to worry about organizing them. So if we turn on this one and then we turn on this one, it will automatically organize it because of our button organizer, right? But in our case, this is fine. I think this is simpler. I was going to do it a different way, but I wasn't sure if it would work. It's a complicated. It's not too complicated, but I just, you know, this is for beginners, so I don't want to make things too complicated without if I don't need to, you know. Okay, so we're just going to have a set of buttons and then turn them on and off depending on if we want to use them or not, which I think is simpler. The downside to this method is that we have to have the buttons already exist. So we don't want to make them. We just have to, so we don't have to make them. So we could take this off because we're not going to make them. They're just all going to exist at the beginning of the game, which also I think is actually pretty more performant. Performance is not an issue in this game. This game is going to run so fast because we're not doing any physics calculation. We're not even running logic on every single frame. This is just going to run once at the start, and every time we click a button, a piece of code is going to run. So this game is going to be one of the most performant games. You can play this on a toaster. It's still going to work, you know? So you don't have to worry about performance, but technically this is more performant than what I was initially envisioning. But either way, it would have worked on a toaster. This way it's going to work on an even worse toaster. Okay. And now if we go back to our game manager, you'll see I deleted that button prefab. So now we only have the button parent. In order to get the button parent, actually, let's rename it because I think like button parent doesn't make too much sense. Let's rename it to button organizer, right? And you'll see we have a semicolon at the end. This is basically like in code. It's like saying like, hey, this is the end of my code. I don't want to do anything after this. And then you see when we change it to button organizer, it turns this into red because this is an error. So in order to prevent that, you could just highlight it by double clicking on it, then press Control RR. Actually, I think that's not going to be the case for you. You can right click on it and then there should be rename. So you right click on it and then click rename, and then you can name it to button organizer. And you'll see formally serialized as, and Writer will automatically do this. What is it called? The other one, Microsoft Visual Studio 2022, will not automatically do this. So I'm just going to erase that. And then if we go back to our code and we go back to game manager, you'll see that this is changed to button organizer and this is button organizer. So it makes it a lot more simpler. We're going to just drag that over and now our button organizer is set properly. But now, the problem that we have now is, okay, let's just do this in the beginning. So we're going to disable all the buttons. So in order to do this at the start, we just copy this name and then include this open and closed parentheses. Disable all buttons, just like that. And now when we click play, it should turn off all of our buttons. We click play and we don't have any more buttons because we turned them all off. But that's not what we want. We want to have, and this is the thing, this is the con of doing it the way that I'm doing it right now, is we want to have 3 buttons. But if we have 6 buttons, right? If we have six options, we want 6 buttons. But the reason why this is a con is if we have 6 options at the very beginning of our game, we have to have 6 buttons. We're not going to do 6 because you can see it starts to dip out. So we're going to keep it at 4. But however many options you have in your story block, you have to have that many buttons inside of your button organizer. So if the maximum number of options you have in any story block is 6, you have to have 6 buttons in the button organizer. Okay, I just said that again twice, but I just want to make it clear. This is the downside. Not a huge downside. You just have to say like, oh, I have one that has 8. So let me just add 8 buttons in the beginning, which is fine. Not a huge deal. Okay, so now we disabled all of the buttons, but we want to enable as many options as we have. So how do we do that? How do we get this options and how do we get that number? The way we're going to do that is we're going to make another for loop. So we're going to do for and then int I 0. This is going to be the number that I starts at. So I is equal to 0 means that we're starting the loop with our I equal to 0. I is just going to be 0. And then we're going to do I is less than beginning story block dot options dot length. And this is just saying how long is our options array. Here, let me see. Let me explain this a different way visually. So right now inside of our options, we have fast. Okay. We have this, right? So if we go back to here, okay. So we have prepare to fight, greet him, run away fast. Oh, prepare. Here, let's just do greet, run fast. Okay. So we have 4 different options, but the way that arrays work is that we don't start counting at 0. We don't start counting at 1. We start counting at 4. So this length that we have right here, this is our options array. The length is not going to be the number. Okay, let me put this side by side actually. Actually, hold on. Give me a second. Okay. Okay, so, okay, sorry, little, I'm trying to come up with the best way to explain this visually so you can understand. Okay, so our options is going to be this array, and this array in our beginning story block holds 4 different options. We have the prepare to fight, which is going to be in the 0 position. We have greet, which is going to be in the 1st position. We have run, which is going to be in the 2nd position. And we have run fast, which is going to be in the 3rd position. But you're understanding that like we have different positions, but these are not the number that we have. We have 4, right? Because this is going to be our first element, because it's the first one, right? This is going to be our 2nd, our 3rd, and our 4th. 2, 3, 4, right? And let's get rid of the word elements. Let me delete all of these. Let me also write it under here. So we have our first position, our 2nd position, our 3rd position. You know, let's do that. Okay, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7, 8, 9. Okay. So this options length is referring to these numbers down here, which is saying how many things do we have, right? So if we just have one, we only have one thing. But when we run our code, let me actually write a little bit more of our code right now. We're going to say, hey, our button organizer dot get child I dot game object dot set active true, just like that, which is just saying turn on this game object. So already, before we continue, let's see this go. So we should see before we're disabling all of our buttons, and now we want to enable the proper amount of buttons. So void enable buttons, right? Buttons. And let's move our code over here just so it's not confusing. And then we're going to write it over here, enable buttons. Okay, so this is just a way of organizing our code, is making a method, naming it what we want, and then, setting it up like that. Okay, so our options length is 4. So I is going to be equal to 0 in the beginning. And because our options, how do you check bugs in your game? Well, Unity will automatically generate inside of the console. It will just tell you like, hey, there's a bug here. But if there's a bug that doesn't appear in the console, if there's not a compiler bug, and for some reason your code is just running weird, you just have to think about your code, because you wrote your code, right? And then just think like, you basically just have to think about why your code is running a certain way, and then try to fix it that way. Debugging is a lot of just thinking about your code. It's just like trying to figure it out. But if you're talking about like step by step, there's a thing called a breakpoint, which you could do by just like clicking on the red over here. And then whenever you run your game, whenever you get to this line, it will just stop running. And then it'll say like, hey, by the way, this is right here. This is where you told me to stop. But I don't really use that. Usually I just think about the code and personally, I just think about the code. It's sort of like, how do you solve a puzzle? It depends on the puzzle. It depends on what code you're writing. It depends on your game. And it depends on the type of puzzle, and there's different strategies. It's a very open-ended question. How long is a piece of string, It depends. How long is a piece of string? That's a good question. Answer me that. Okay. what was I saying? I got off track. Okay, man. What? Hold on. Let me. I lost my focus. I need to get back on focus. We were talking about arrays. We're talking about, okay, there's 4 elements here, which means that over here, if we look inside of our Figma, or if we look, oh, fuck, okay. If we look over here, you'll see that we have 4, but our eye position, this eye represents this number, but this options.length represents this number. So by the time we get to 4, the 4th position, our eye is going to be equal to 3. And you can see that this lines up perfectly. You see? So if we start on I, if we start on 0, 0 is going to be the first position, which is going to be prepare. 1 is going to be our second position, which is going to be greet. Run is going to be our third position, which is our 2 for I, which is going to be run. And 4 is going to be our fourth position, which is going to be run fast, which is third for our I. And that's what this I represents these numbers. This length represents this number. Does that make sense? So whenever we say, is I less than 4? And since it's a loop, I is going to be changing every single time we run this code. So I is going to be 0. So in button organizer, we're going to get the 0 position, which is going to be the first position. Is going to be 0. We're going to get that game object and we're going to set it active. So 0 is going to be that. And is 0 less than 4, which is going to be true. So we're going to run this piece of code again. Then I is going to be equal to 1, which is going to be this section is going to be greet, right? Is 1 less than 4? That's going to be yes. And then we're going to repeat the piece of code again. So then I is going to be less than 2. Is 2 less than 4? Because this is the size of our options array. So that's where we're getting 4 from. And we're saying yes, 2 is less than 4. So we're going to run the piece of code again, and we're going to increase our I plus 1, and that's what this I plus plus means. I plus plus is the same thing as I plus 1. This is the exact same thing. And we could just keep it as that right now, just for now. So I is going to be equal to itself plus 1, right? And this is going to happen every single time we finish writing a line of code. Every time we finish writing, or every time we finish running this loop, we're doing this to I. Okay? Let's go back here. And then when we get to 4, since our array is only 4 options long, whenever we increase, we're going to finish this line of code, and then our I is going to be equal to 4. And then we're going to ask the question, is 4 less than 4? And the answer is no. So then that means that we stop running our code. We're not going to run our code anymore, right? That's basically what we're doing over here. So if we go look at our options array, this is what we're doing right here. So that is how a loop works. So before, we're not even changing any of the text, we're just turning on the buttons and turning them off, right? So if we click play, you'll see we have all 3 buttons. And if we remove one, we should see that there's only 3 buttons now. And we do, we see 3 buttons. And then if we only have 2, then we'll see we have 2 buttons. There you go. And that is how we make our buttons dynamic. Like I said, this method, we cannot increase the amount of buttons that we have, but we can just decrease them. We can just turn them on and off, which is a little bit more performance, but not so much that it's important. It's easier. I think it's easier just to explain. But if we wanted to be more dynamic and have the ability to add in more buttons than just that 4, we can do that later. But right now, I think we're just going to do it this way for now. Okay. But we don't want to just turn them on. We also want to go inside of this button. And then inside of each button, you'll notice that we have another Text Mesh Pro. You'll see, just like how this is a Text Mesh Pro, inside of each button is a Text Mesh Pro also. So in order to get that Text Mesh Pro, we're going to do the same thing over here. So we're going to, first of all, we're going to save this game object as a variable inside of this method. So in order to save a variable, we just have to say what type of variable we're trying to save. In this case, it's a game object, just like over here we have transform TMP text story block. And then we're going to say button prefab is going to be equal to this piece of code right here. Just like that. And the reason why we're doing this is because we're going to use this prefab multiple times throughout the code. And we don't want to like get the child every single time because this method is a little bit expensive. And if we can cut down on using this method, we should, right? So we don't want to do this. We want to change it to button prefab and then set this to true, set active to true. And the next thing that we want to do is we want to get the button prefab, and then we want to go inside of the child and get a component inside of that child. And in this case, we want to go inside of the first child and get the TMP text, but there's no other children in here. It's just this. If we just look at one of these, the only thing inside of it is one game object with 3 components. And the components are, these are the components: Rect Transform, Canvas Renderer, and Text Mesh Pro Text UI. So there is a method to actually do that, to get a component inside of a child, and it's just called get component in children, just like that. And then it's going to ask us what type of component do we want to get, and this is called a generic. We basically have to tell it what type of a class we want to grab, or what type of what data we want to grab. And like we did up here, we want to get a TMP text, and in order to write that down, we're going to use a greater or less than symbol, and then do TMP underscore text, and then a greater than symbol, right? And then what this is doing is very much what the name implies. We're getting a component inside of that child, and I hope I explained that well enough for you to understand what that means. And then we're going to get this text, and then we're going to equal this to our beginning story block dot. Oh, okay, I thought it was okay. Let me just press enter. Okay, we're going to equal this to beginning story block dot options, and like I mentioned before, our options is going to be an array. And in order to access each of these options, so in order to access, let me go here. So in order to access the runaway, and then runaway fast, so in order to, okay, I feel like this is probably the best thing that I have made to explain what an array is. So you see we have the 0 element is prepare to fight, first element is greet, the first element is run away. These numbers are very intentionally telling us what spot we want to look at. So if we want to get this element 0 text, we have to type in I is equal to 0, right? But because our I is already being moved through on its own, this is automatically getting that information for us. So we're going to do I 0, and then we're going to get, oh, that's it. So we're going to get beginning story block dot options I, and that's going to return this position. And now this is basically running this code every single time, depending on these statements. So let me just copy and paste them multiple times. And you'll see that we have this error. This piece of code is basically saying, hey, 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, right? And the reason why this is throwing an error, prefab. First button prefab. Second button prefab. Third button prefab. Fourth button prefab. This is just for the sake of explanation. You don't have to do this. But basically what this code is doing is this is running the code depending on the option's length. So for this story block, like I said, we have 4 options because that length is referencing this number. And then the I is referencing this number. But if we look at our dead story, we have 2 options, right? So this options.length is going to be equal to 2 because if we look over here, this is 2. We have 2 things here. Sorry, let me grab this again. So this changes to end and this changes to start, right? And then we remove these 2. So we have 2 over here. The length is equal to 2. The I is equal to 0 at the beginning. And then we're increasing it by 1. And that's what we're doing here. That's what we're doing here. I is equal to 0. But when we run the code, we're increasing it by 1, right? I is equal to itself plus 1. So the first time is 0 is equal to 0 plus 1. 1 is equal to 1 plus 1. And the simpler way of writing this is the way that we have it written above is plus plus. But we'll keep it like this, just so, because we have both examples, right? I plus plus is literally the same thing as this, is I is equal to itself plus 1. So 0 is equal to 0 plus 1. 0 turns into 1. 1 is equal to 1 plus 1, 2. And then 2 is equal to 2 plus 1, 3. So it's just increasing it by 1 every single time. And the other case, sorry, I know I'm jumping between cases, but I really want this to stick. And when I was first learning programming, this was like the #1 thing that a lot of people were stuck on, is like really not understanding how a loop works. So I just want to make sure that when I explain this, I really drill it in, because this is like really fundamental to programming. So I just want you to understand it, you know? Same thing over here for this beginning story options length dot length is equal to 4. I is equal to 0. So 4, 0, and then we have our 4 different options, right? Anyways, let's, sorry, I keep doing the same thing. And this is what it's doing. This is what it's doing. I hope this was well explained. I feel like I tried to explain it like 5 different times, and I think that might have been more confusing than anything else. But now that we have this working, this should just work automatically. So if we run our game, everything should be working now. Yeah, look at that. A guy walks towards you. What do you want to do? Run, prepare to fight, greet him, run away fast, and run away, or run away and then run away fast. Okay, this is everything that we've been striving towards. The next thing, and basically the last thing that we want to do, is we want to be able to switch to a new story block. So in order to do that, we have to go back into our scriptable object code, and then we want to have a reference for all the story blocks that we can switch to. Public story block SO, and this is going to be another array, and then this we're going to do yeah, story blocks is fine, just like this. And I'll show you what this does for us. So when we go over here, we're going to see that we have two different arrays now, and we have this, but when we open this up, it's not going to give us options for different text. We're going to have to make new story blocks to fill in these options, right? So if we click over here, and let's say a guy is walking you towards you on the street, and he's really scary. It says prepare to fight. So we're going to make a new story block, and we're going to call this prepare. So it's like you put up your fists, and he looks at you strangely. Okay, then we're going to put another greet him. We're going to make another story block, greet, and then we're going to say, hey, you say hello to him, and he says hello back. And then what's the other one? Run away. Okay. We're going to make a new one, run. And then this is going to be what how he responds. You quickly turn and run away, avoiding danger. Okay. Right. So now we have these three different options. Now we have 4 of these. Okay. So in order to add these in, all we have to do is just put them in the same spot. So prepare, we're going to put in the first position because that's the first option. Then we have greet him, which is going to be that. It's going to be greet. And then run is going to be the third one, run. Now, this presents a couple of different problems because it feels like you really have to make sure that you line everything up correctly, because while you're doing this, it could be a little bit confusing to go like, or you could accidentally, very easily accidentally put greet in the first position and prepare in the second position. And if you're making a huge set of story blocks and you're like trying to make a big story with like branching paths and whatever, doing this is going to mess you up, you know, and you're not going to be able to, or it's just going to, the likelihood of this causing a problem is super high because we have two different elements that we have to align perfectly. So instead of doing this, I actually wasn't planning on doing this, but I think it's just too much of a hassle to do it any other way. We're going to do it a different way. We're going to do this. We're going to get rid of our options. And then we're also going to, why is this orange? Story text. Oh, that's fine. We're also, inside of the story text, we're going to change this to a public string. And then we're going to say option text. And the reason why it's throwing these yellow lines is because it's really asking us to change this to a capital S and a capital O and a capital S over here, right? Does not match the... What do you mean it does? Option text does not match rule unity serialization field suggestion name. Okay, whatever. This is sometimes, I think Writer is good, but sometimes it just really doesn't like when it just throws a lot of errors. So each story block is now going to have an option text. And this is the thing that we're going to reference whenever we get the button, right? Just like this. Or button text, right? I think that's a better name. So if we go over here into our other piece of text, we're going to see that we threw an error now, right? So instead of doing this, we're going to do story blocks dot length, because this, we're switching out the story blocks to the story to, this is confusing to say. We're switching out the story blocks, the options to the story blocks. So instead of heading into options, what we're going to do is we're going to go into our story blocks like this. And you see this is throwing an error because the story block includes all of this information, but we don't want all of this information. We just want the button text, just like that. And now that we save this, whenever we click on one of these, you'll see that we don't ever have these options, the options again. We are going to assign each option. We're going to assign each button inside of the story block itself. So, man, this is a bit confusing also, because you kind of have to write the option. Man. Okay. So for the first one, we want greet, right? So we're going to say here, greet him. Prepare, you're going to write prepare for fights. Run, you're going to do run away. And now that we wrote this code this way, where we're going inside of a story block and then we're getting the button text, when we click play, it should display properly. Yep, greet him, prepare for a fight, run away. And now this way, the button text and the button itself are linked very tightly. So that means you're not going to make a mistake. You're going to see, okay, this is going to be the run option. So this is what I want to display to the user as this option. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. That makes sense, right? If it doesn't make sense, let me know. And now, yeah, but then the problem with this way is that it's sort of confusing because you sort of want to write the text next to it. So actually, this is refactoring, and this entire thing that we're doing right now is refactoring, because we're thinking about the way that we want to write our code, and we're making it better by doing it this way. We're making it easier to work with later. So we're going to do it a different way. We're going to make a new class, a new object called a struct that is going to hold information for us. Okay. And we're going to make this serializable. Public. And we're not going to do class. We're going to do struct. And then we're going to do story option. And then inside of the story option, we're going to have two pieces of data. We're going to have a story block SO, story block. And then we're also going to have a public string option text like that. Perfect. And instead of doing it this way, we're going to get rid of this. And instead of having a story block SO array, we're going to have a story option. And then when we do it, basically, this is what we're doing. Okay, I know it's a little confusing. I just wrote a bunch of code and I didn't really explain any of it. This serializable, I'm not 100% sure if we need it. This is just for us to be able to save to be able to save this information. So I think that we need it, but I'm not 100% sure if we need it. Try it with and without, okay? And this story option is going to be a new piece of data that's going to hold two pieces of information. It's going to hold a story text, and it's also going to hold, a story block, which is this entire thing, and that's holding it right here. And it's also going to hold the option text, or we could name it to button text right here. And this is the text that is going to be displayed on the button. And then if we save this, if we go back, actually it's not going to compile because we have an error over here. Instead of doing it this way, I'm going to rename this. So I'm going to right click on it and then go to rename right here. That's how I did that. Instead of doing it, naming it story blocks, I'm going to name it story options. Press enter. And then that is automatically going to change it over here. You see, changes from story blocks to story options. And instead of button text, we want to go inside of our story options and get the option button text right there. So we're going to copy that and paste that over here. And the benefit of doing it this way, now that it's recompiling, is that each option, story option, if we make a new one, you're going to see we're going to open it up and it gives us two fields now. So we're going to, I think this is the best way to do this. We're going to do greet, prepare, and run. So now instead of hiding away the option button text inside of a story block, we have the option button text displayed to us right here. So we could say, greet him. So prepare for fight. And run away. I think this is the best way because it both links the story block and also gives us the option text like right for us, right there. And then if we save this and play, this should be correct. And it should be super difficult to mess this up whenever we're actually like making our game, right? This is like the cleanest way, the best way, the way that we're probably not going to mess this up the most. Does that make sense? We're hopefully not going to mess this up because we wrote it this way. And now this is working. Look, it's all working. Problem, it doesn't work. Basically, the only thing that we did was we just made this code easier to work with. We made our system easier to work with, but we didn't really do anything beyond just making it easier to work with and displaying the first piece of text, right? So this is not working. Whenever we click on something, we actually want it to display this thing right here, this story text up there, right? So how do we do that? Well, let's go to our game manager. And we're not going to go into our game manager. We're going to make a new story block. And we're going to call it private. It's going to be a private story block. Story block, SO. And we're going to call it current story block. And this is the way, this is also like the default way how you should write it. But I have actually gotten used to writing it this way just because it feels nicer to work with when you start to work with like larger files. Whenever you write a private variable, you always prefix it with an underscore. And that's just to help you distinguish something that exists inside of your class and something that can be modified outside of the class. Does that make sense? Because this is a class, and this current story block can only be modified inside of this code. You'll notice that we have access to this option button text, which exists over here, because this is public, and this is public, and this is public. So we have three publics, but whenever we have something as private, if I go to the game manager, here, let's just really quick, for example, we're going to do a private game manager, and then we're going to do private void test method. Okay, if we go to game manager dot beginning story block, we have access to that. And then we can also get the story options dot, and we could do 0 dot story block, or we could do dot option button text right there, you see? So, well, we're not doing anything with it, but we could just save this as a string, test string. Now it doesn't throw an error. But this is completely acceptable because all of it is public, but because we wrote this as private, we're not able to access it. Does that make sense? So if we go into game manager and try to get this underscore current story block, it's just not going to let us. And if we hover over it, it says cannot access private field. We're saying like, well, why would we make it private? Like, don't we want to be able to access everything inside of our code? And the answer is no. If we are able to access everything inside of our code, it just makes it more difficult to work with because it makes us have the ability to mess up the code more likely. Does that make sense? Like we don't want to mess up our code. So if by default, we should be trying to make everything private to make our code safer to work with. Okay. That's why we're setting it as private. And whenever we make something private, we add in this underscore because just to signify, hey, this is private. You can't access this outside of this class. Okay. Now inside of here, we're going to make our current story block is equal to our beginning story block. And basically all of this information is done, right? Okay. The next thing that we want to do is we want to actually make the logic for our buttons. So this is going to be public because we want our buttons to be able to access this method. We're going to make this void, and then we're going to make this, we're going to name this option story option button. Clicked. Perfect. Okay, so let's say that we want to make one for each one. First story option button clicked. Second story option button clicked. And now what we're going to do is we're going to change our current story block is going to be equal to our current story block dot story options 0, because that's going to be the first position, dot story block, just like that. And this is what we want to do. And basically for our second one, we also want to do this same thing, except the second position, right? Let's look back at our diagram again. The second, oh my gosh, I keep doing that. The second position is going to be the first index, right? That's our index. These are called our index. These are our positions, okay? So our second button, second story button is going to be equal to 1 because our index is equal to 1, and that's our second position. Okay. And we basically want to do this for all 4 button options. Second, third, fourth. 2, 3, and I hope when you see it this way, you see it lined up. First, 0, second, 1, third, 2, fourth, third, 3. I hope that makes sense. I keep drilling in this array thing, but you know, it's kind of important. So this way, we want to be able to run this code, but instead of doing it based off of the beginning story block, we want to do it off of the current story block. So over here, we're going to change this to current story block, story options, and wherever we see beginning story block, we're going to change to current story block. And then this should make it automatic that we do whatever is inside our current story block. Does that make sense? So in the beginning, let's actually even do this over here too. We're going to get this story text is going to be equal to our current story block dot story text. And you might be wondering, why are we doing this? Like, we already have a reference to our beginning story block. It doesn't make sense to add this other variable when we already have that. And the reason why we're doing this is because we want to write this code here for all of these. So this is going to be the thing that makes it so all of our story blocks work, and it's very like variable. Like, we don't have to worry about what am I trying to say? We don't have to worry about the beginning story block because we're going to be changing it dynamically using the information that is already inside of our current story block. And we're just assigning it to the beginning story block in the beginning because this is just like the first one. But then from here on out, it is automatic. Like, we don't have to do anything. And we're making all of these changes, and all of this code is like repeatable. It's the same piece of code. The only difference that we're changing over here is this one individual number, but it's the exact same code. And this brings up our new problem, or this brings up another problem, is we have a lot of this same code, and it's a lot of repeated code. And in code, there is this concept called dry code. And dry code it's an acronym. It's DRY. DRY stands for don't repeat yourself. So if you have your code written more than 2 times in your code base, you're probably doing something wrong, and you can probably turn that into a method somehow. Over here, we have it repeated 4 times. So we're doing something really wrong. If you repeat it twice, that's okay. 3 times, you're going like, okay, something's going on here. Let's try to make this code more dry. That's just a rule of thumb. It's not like a hard stuck rule. Sometimes you do just have to copy some code over and over again, but it's very circumstantial, and you'll get more used to it the more code that you write. But here, very much this is a problem. So in order to fix this, let's delete all of these. And just like how over here int I is equal to 0, how this is running a piece of code over and over again, and it's changing just this one value, you can see we're doing the exact same thing here. We're just changing this single value. Okay. So we're going to rename this, and in order to make this value dynamic, we're going to make a thing called a parameter. And whenever we call this method, we have to, it's basically like a variable that is limited to just this method. So we're going to make a variable just for this one single method, and we're going to name this button position. You see it's throwing an error because we have to give it a data type. And in our case, this number is going to be an integer. It's not going to be, it's just going to be a single digit number. There's not going to be any decimal points. So in order to signify that we want this to be an integer, we're going to write int space. And now this is the position, button position. And we're going to delete the 0, and we're going to replace it with button position, just like that. And, that's basically it. And you can see over here that this code is very similar, but this is one of those cases where I was talking about. It's like, oh, actually we do want to repeat code sometimes, but this is, instead of repeating it, actually it was 5 times. We're repeating this code 5 times. We're only going to repeat this code a single time. So we're good. And actually, if we actually wanted to be more stringent with this, no, it's fine. It's fine. There is a way you could write it so you don't have to repeat code, but it would be too much code just to get rid of this one piece of code. And that's the case sometimes. Sometimes if I can make this so I don't repeat it, but then I would have to write more code so I don't repeat this code one time, which is not necessary. You know, it's like too much complications. So you see story option button clicked. So we want to get this this logic and put it onto our buttons, and you'll see that we have this position. We'll see this option over here. So over here, we're going to click on the button, and then on the button components, if we go into our hierarchy and then click on option button, you're going to see that we have a bunch of different components, and these were automatically generated for us whenever we created these buttons. We're going to see this on click. All we have to do is click the plus and then drag in our game manager into this none object. And then in the functions, you see no function. You're going to click this drop down, go over to game manager, and then do story option button clicked. And then you see that it gives us the option for the number over here. So in order to do this for all of these, because you see we're all of them have this problem, we're going to right click on it and then apply to button prefab option. And now, yeah, sometimes it doesn't work because we can only save things on the prefab template when it exists inside of the prefab. A little confusing, but this is good too. We just have to drag in our game object, game manager, game manager into this on click for all of these, and we have to assign it ourselves. So game manager, story block option, game manager, story block option, game manager, story option button clicked. And just in case you're like you don't see this option to drag anything in, sometimes you'll click on this button and then it'll see like, oh wait, there's nothing there. In order to make something appear, you just click on this plus, and then now you can drag in your game manager and then story option button. And then as you can see, this number right here indicates the option that we want to change to. So if we take back a look at our trusty diagram again, you have to drill this in. First position is 0, second position is 1, third position is 2, fourth position is 3. So this option button 0 is going to be 0. This option button 1 is going to be 1. This option button 2 is going to be 2. And this option button 3 is going to be 3. Okay. And now we're going to click play. And now if we did everything right, if we made sure everything was working, whenever we click on a button, it should just work now. A guy walks towards you on the street and he's really scary. Okay. So we're going to greet him. And then it says, you say hello to him and he says hello back. That's it. Look at that. That's great. Perfect. Okay. Now we want to basically return all of these back to the beginning story block. So in order to do that, let's make a new option for the greet, and we're going to add in our beginning story block here and then start over again, just like that. Prepare. We want to do the same thing. We want to go back to the beginning. This is start over. Run. We're going to go back to the beginning story and then start over. And we basically have to copy again and again, right? The same thing. Or click play. And we're going to say, a guy walks towards you, greet him. You say hello and he says hello back. Start over again. Great. Guy walks towards you on the street and he's really scary. Prepare for a fight. You put up your fist and he looks at you strangely. Start over. Run away. You quickly turn and run away, avoiding danger, you know? Start over. And you see, this is basically the whole entire game. Like, you are ready to just make out your story, make a bunch of different trees. And let's say, for example, we didn't use this death story block. So let's add in the option to start again. And let's just start over. And you can see how really modular this whole system is, because we have a few options, but we're still repeating everything over and over again. It says, say avoiding danger. Let's say that we want to continue running, and then this is going to be our death story. Okay, and then if we go to dead story block, say you continue running and run into traffic and die. Sad. Okay. Now this is kind of like a whole game, you know? So you have run away, and now we have another option. You have quickly turn and run away. You quickly turn and run away, avoiding danger. Continue running. You continue running and run into traffic and die. Sad. Start over. You see? This is how simple it is to make new trees or to make loops. And like really simply, you just go create story block, and then this, you could just make a whole new branch just like that, you know? Everything super simple, super modular, and we coded this all inside of here. There are a couple more things that I want to do. I do want to make a background. So inside of our canvas, we're going to create a UI panel. And then you could see that it looks like it's covering over everything. It's really faded. In order to fix that, we're going to go and put this above everything. So like you're putting it above everything, like shouldn't it be the other way around? Yeah, actually, let me reset it. If you want to change the color of it, you could go to over here, color, and there you're gonna see this alpha. And alpha is automatically set to 100 by default. Set it to 250 and it's completely pitched. And you could change the color over here to whatever you want. But even more excitedly, you can change this to any image that you want. So let's go ahead. I'm just going to drag in the thumbnail that I made for this live stream. We're going to create folder images, or we could call this art, right? So if you're like a really artsy person, you can use this to make like an actual game, you know, like this is going to be your actual game. So then we can drag in a new asset. It's literally, this is literally a PNG. I just drag this over from my folders and just dragged it in here. You see? Here, let me see. See this? Click, drag, boom. There you go. That's it. So you get any image you want. You can make one. You could draw them. You could buy them. I probably shouldn't get just them off of Google because you could get in some copyright issues, but you know, however you want to get images. And then when you click on panel, because we added this panel, you can just drag it into here. And then you see it's completely black right now because whenever we change the source image, we actually want this color to be completely white. And now there is some things that you could do with this. Is if you make something completely white, like you could change the colors dynamically by changing this color. You can see this color basically does like an overlay thing, you know? And look, there it is. And we can drag this in above. And you can see now we have our own custom background. And if we want to make this easier to read, we can make a new UI panel here. You can see now we have a panel here. And the reason why, okay, let me do that again because I feel like I'm just clicking and I'm not really explaining what I'm doing. In order to make a background for this, I'm going to right click on this text because it's going to, we already have a size, we already have a dimension for this text, and it's this yellow bar you see right here, right? In order to, you know, add in the background, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on it, go over to UI, and then you could just do image, but panel automatically stretches it out. So I'm going to do panel, And instead of keeping it here, I'm actually going to pull it out. The reason why I created it as a child is because I just wanted to get the same dimensions. And then I'm going to drag text into here. And then now we can change this to whatever color, make it white, make it red. Probably just going to make it white. You can see it's not completely white because this background is a slightly gray color. But if we change it to UI Sprite, then that should also work. And the way I did that, I just clicked on panel, clicked on the circle dot over here, and then it gives you all the options that you can switch it to. That's actually not true. If you go over to the top right, there's even more options over here. So there's more options. You can see there's things called 9 slice, and 9 slice, you can see there's different sizes. 9 slice just means that it's sliced into 9 pieces. And we could actually look at that. No, it's fine. We don't have to look at it. It just basically makes it so you can expand it to however big you want without it losing any quality. And we could talk about that more in the future, but if you don't, it's not something that we really have to focus on right now. And then here you can change the color of this. So let's say we want to change it to like white. And then let's actually go into our text and rename this by pressing F2. We're going to change this to story text. And then we're going to rename this panel to text background. And then we're going to go to the story text, open up our Text Mesh Pro, and we're going to change this vertex color to black or to a gray or something, you know. And then also, because now we have this border, we actually don't want to have it completely up on the sides, on the edges, right? So we're going to position it. We're going to hold Alt and hold Shift to set the pivot and set the position. And we're going to stretch this out just like that. And now when we do that and we select hold Alt and Shift and stretch it out, it's going to bring it to the center and it's going to stretch out the image to cover the entire panel. It's going to give us these options for left, top, right, bottom. And this is going to be our padding. And just like our button organizer or our buttons over here, we want to give this the same padding that we have for our buttons. So inside of our story text, we're going to change this to 24. Top is going to be 24. Right is going to be 24. Bottom is going to be 24. Just like that. And now we have this same padding that we have over here. Now, very exciting. We can dynamically change the background for our background. For our background. So this is going to be just, we're going to rename this from panel to background. Okay. So in order to do that, we're going to do a few things. We're going to add another piece of data over here, and it's going to be a sprite. And this sprite, image sprite or story image. This sprite is going to dynamically change whenever we click on a new button, right? So in order to adjust that, we're going to have to get a reference to this image inside of our code. So in order to do that, we're going to do public image, and we're going to ask what namespace do we want to get it from. If you remember namespaces, right? We're going to go to Unity engine.ui, not Unity elements or whatever. It's going to be .ui. We're going to press enter, and then we're going to do background image, just like that. And then here, we're going to go to our game manager, and then we're going to drag in this background, and then that's right there, background image. And I actually don't like you can keep it right there, but I'm going to name it background image. Just like that. Okay. And then we're going to have to replace it back again. Hopefully it doesn't generate. Yeah, okay. Because we changed the name, it removes it from that field. So that's also a good thing to note. If you do rename something, you have to reassign it back in the inspector. Okay, just like this. And then if we go into our story blocks, you're going to see that we have this new field called sprite, story image. And then that can be, and you can change that for every single one. So if you don't want to change it, actually, I'll do that in code. We're going to say background image is equal to current story block dot story image, just like that. You're going to see it's throwing an error. It's throwing an error, and the reason why it's throwing an error is because if we look at our background, we are getting the image, but we don't want to change the entire thing. Like there's so many different options, right? There's so many different fields. There's color, there's material, there's raycast target. The thing that we want to change is this specific source image. So in order to access that specific field, we're going to do background image dot, it's not, I'm pretty sure it's not source image, right? It's a little confusing. Sometimes they name the fields different things. In this case, it's going to be sprite. Now we do this. And now I believe when we actually run the game, two things are going to happen. It's either going to give us a bug, debugging, or it's going to be completely fine. I think it's going to give us a bug. Greet him. Oh, it's just completely fine. Yeah, okay. Okay, I guess. Okay, yeah. I guess this is fine. We don't have to do that. But as you can see, when we first initially clicked on the button, we do actually have our image in the background. But then it changes it to nothing, which is great, which is probably what you want. But let's... it's probably not what you want. If you don't have an image in there, you probably don't want the image to change, right? So over here, we're going to do something. We're going to do if current, let's do current story block dot story image is equal to null. That means that we don't have an image there. Then we don't want to, then we want, if it's equal to null, then we don't want to run the code. But if it is not equal to null, then we do want to run the code. So over here it says, this right here just signifies, it's just asking a question. So we're saying, does this have anything? Man, this is a little difficult to explain. This right here is called a conditional operator, and there are a few different types of conditional operators. There's equals equals, and this is basically asking the question. It's saying, does story image equal to null? And null just means that there's nothing there. So if we look at our beginning story block, there's nothing here, right? So that means that it is equal to null, and that means that we are going to change the background sprite to nothing, right? So this is saying, if this is nothing, then change it to nothing. But we don't want to do that. We want to say, if this is not equal to nothing, then change the image, right? Now, you might be saying, that sounds a little confusing. Like, why would we check if it's not equal to nothing? Just because this is the most basic form that we can check. Is it nothing or is it something? You know, we don't care what it is. We just want to know if it is not nothing. And this is the simplest way to write that. Is story image not equal to nothing? Is story image not equal to null? If that's the case, then we want to change it. And if it's not the case, then we're not going to change it, right? So now, whenever we click on a button, it should only change if there's an image associated with that story block. And I think none of them have images except for the one that we have. So let's grab in a new image. Sure, we'll use my social media avatar just for an example. And then we're going to grab our story blocks. And let's change the beginning story block to this abstract thumb in the back. And then let's change our dead story block to my social media avatar. Okay, just like that. And now whenever we get to the dead story block, it should change to that, and then immediately it should change back to the to this regular one that we have. So okay, great, run away. And now as soon as we get here, boom, look at that, it changes to the social media avatar with this weird, really weird tint. The reason why we're getting that tint is because we changed this to yellow, and this should be white, and now it should generate perfectly. So we click play. Greet him. Great. Start over. Run away. Continue running away. And it shows up my social media avatar. This is perfect. This is exactly what we want. Now, if you're an artist, you can rearrange how this whole thing looks. So if you want to make the background have like more of a pivotal role, you can just like squish it up here. And then, you know, you would just have to make art in whatever dimensions you want. Or you could make the whole story text be a lot smaller, so it focuses a lot more on the image instead of the text. However you want to do this, you can rearrange this however you want by pressing T and literally just clicking and dragging however you want. You know, let's say that you want to apply this and make them all this size. You would change this one, and then you would click on this button right here. Open prefab isolation. Actually, let's go back. We're going to go over here to overrides, and we're going to see that there's some overrides if you click apply all. Huh. Okay, that should have worked. Whatever, it's fine. Yeah, we'll handle it. Okay, so if we go over here and then we change the size of these, it should change the size, but if we go back, it's not doing that. Why is it not doing that? Ah, you see right here, child force expand, use child scale for the width, just like that. And now if we go here, and then we change it, and then we go back. No, it's still not changing it. Why? Button organizer. This is interesting. This is interesting. Why is it not changing it? Use child width. It should just be changing it. The reason why it's not is because revert all. What did that do? Oh, that just ruined that. Okay, so we're gonna add that back in. Game manager, it's gonna be story option 0. All of them have that, right? Okay, perfect. It probably has something to do with the vertical layout group, so I'm not going to worry too much about it, but if you want to get rid of it, I actually probably wouldn't recommend getting rid of it. But you can change your buttons, and you change how all of everything looks, and this is like can actually turn into an actual game, you know, if you put in some time and whatnot to it. And actually, let me see if I have it. I actually do have, because I got really excited about this idea. And I wanted to bridge multiplayer. Okay, let me from disk. Give me a second. Let me see if I can find it. I just want to show you an example of what the game can turn into if you put in some time, some thought into the project, you know. Give me 1 second. Text adventure. Where are you at? Okay. Change it to the newest one. Okay, we'll wait for that to update just because I have to update it to the new one. Continue. Okay, we'll wait for that to update. But the next thing that I want to do, I just want to add in a bunch of stuff. Let's say that you want to add in voice acting, right? Okay, let's add in some voice acting. Let's actually do that right now. In order to add in voice acting into your game or just like voiceover, we're going to go over into our assets. Actually, let's just make this over here. We're going to add in a new empty, Control-Shift-N, and then this is going to be our sound source. And then we're going to add a component, and it's going to be audio source. So this is going to be the thing that actually sends out the noise, right? And you don't want any, I mean, the settings are fine as is. You could probably put it under the main camera. So we're gonna grab this sound source and put it, drag it under the main camera so it's a child. And the reason why we're doing this is because the main camera has the audio listener. So there's an audio source, and the audio source, basically all the audio source does, it sends out the sound, but the audio listener is the thing that has to be able to hear that sound. You know what I mean? So in this case, we want the audio source and the audio listener to be in the same spot. You can see this position is not set to 0, 0. So we do want to reset this to 0, 0. So we're going to right click and then just click reset. And now this audio source is going to be right on top of the camera. So that means there's not going to be any sort of like Doppler effect, or one side is going to be louder than the other because it's literally on the same spot, you know? Okay, so now that we have the audio source, let's go into our code and then give our story blocks the option for an audio, for like audio. So in order to do that, we're going to do public audio clip story. And then we could just name it to voiceover. Just like that. And now if we go back to our story blocks, you're going to see that each story block now has, not only does it have a story image, but it also has a voiceover. And now let's go ahead and make a new folder called sounds. Okay, and now there's a bunch of different ways that you can like make voiceover. There is this one application called Audacity. So if you want to record your voiceover, this is the one that a lot of people use, Audacity, right here. It's free. Did it say it's open source? It's a free and open source digital audio editor, and this is really simple to use. You download it. Should I just download it? Let's just download it, because if you're making a game, here, let me move this over. Downloads, save. What the heck is MuseHub? Okay. Yep. Getting MuseHub ready for you. It will launch when it's ready. Oh my gosh. Why did they do this? Okay, whatever. We're downloading MuseHub. Great. I have another launcher on my computer. Perfect. We're going to click launch. I hope that if you follow this tutorial, you like actually send me what you make, because I hope to see some cool stuff come out of this. Okay, and then we're going to record, and we're going to record our text. And let's go ahead and start with our story block, beginning story text. This is going to be the text that we want to hear. A guy walks towards you on the street and he's really scary. So let's record that. A guy walks towards you on the street and he's really scary. Stop that. Okay. We're going to cut this. So all I did was I just, let me undo that. So all I did was I clicked this red button to record, and it's a little small. I have a 4K screen. Sorry, I tried to adjust for that. Can I make it bigger? File, edit, preferences. Hello, where are the preferences? Oh my gosh. Okay, there we go. Interface, theme, audio settings, recording, MIDI, quality, interface. Can I zoom in? Tracks, libraries, directories, and close. Okay, I can't zoom in, but there's like a little red button over here that says record. And then in order to delete some audio, I'm just going to highlight and then just click delete on my keyboard. And then let's delete the beginning. And then I'm going to go to effects. Or actually, I'm just going to select everything. And is there a way to increase the audio? Just like that. A guy walks towards you. Let's hear how that sounds. Let's hear how that sounds, huh? A guy walks towards you on the street. A guy walks towards you on the street, and he's okay. Oh my gosh, this is so difficult to use. A guy walks towards you on the street, and he's really scary. A guy walks. There you go. Perfect. Good enough, right? I was hoping to increase the audio on this, but it doesn't look like it's doing that. Or I don't know how to do that on this particular application. Usually, I use wait, volume. There we go. Amplify. And then we're going to increase this to okay, like that. And now it should be a lot louder. A guy walks towards you on the street, and he's really scary. A guy walks. There we go. We're going to save this, save to computer, and then we're going to I'm just going to save it onto my desktop. Then we have to name it or say beginning voiceover. Save. Great. Now we just made a voiceover. So now I'm going to go to my files, to my desktop, and then we're just going to drag in that file that we just made. Oh, hold on. Oh my gosh. File. I guess we have to export the audio. So in order to export the audio, it says go to File and then Control-Shift-E. So we're going to do that. And then we're going to save it as a WAV, or we're going to do MP3 just so it's a smaller file, and change it to mono. And then we're going to export. Okay. And now we're going to drag this in over to our sounds. Now we have this beginning voiceover like already set for us, right? In order to actually play this, we're going to go into our story blocks, go to beginning story block, and then get our sound, and then just drag that in to this section. And then we have to have a reference to the sound source in our game manager. So in order to add that reference, we're going to go to the game manager, and then we're going to do another public field. And this public field is going to be public audio source. Just like that. It's going to be audio. It's going to be source. Let's just name it audio source. Audio source. Okay. And then we're going to do the same thing we did over here. We're going to say if current story block dot voiceover is not equal to null, then we're going to get the audio source Gonna get the audio source, and then we're gonna do clip, and then we're gonna go to current story block.voiceover is equal to the clip, and this is the clip is the actual sound that we want to play, and the audio source is all of the features like the volume and everything that we want. And then once we assign it, we're just gonna click play, okay? And then if we do that, we should, one thing we shouldn't forget is we have to get the sound source and drag it into our audio source right there. Then we click play, and when we click play, we should not hear it. And the reason why we're not hearing it, I'll explain why. Yeah. The reason why we're not hearing it is because why is it running in the background? What the heck is this? Why did they do this? Oh my gosh. Quit. Okay. Also Zoom. Is that Zoom? Yeah. Why is Zoom open? Okay. Okay. The reason why we're not hearing it is because we wrote it inside of this method, but start doesn't run that method. It only runs it here. So let's just copy over this code and paste it in the beginning of our start. And then once we have added that, now we should be able to click play, and we should hear it now. Let's hear. A guy walks towards you on the street and he's really scary. There you go. And you basically just repeat that over and over again. You add in audio, you add in whatever. Now let's I feel like I'm trying to add in more and more stuff, you know. That's why I didn't. The music is too distracting to me. Like I'm just gonna get out of focus if I try to listen to that. Okay, now that we have audio, we have a custom background with the code to automatically change it. Let's actually add in music. I think we could add in music. So let's go ahead and duplicate this sound source and let's rename it to voiceover. And then once we rename it, we don't actually have to do anything in the game manager because it will just automatically rename it for us. Let's duplicate this and change this to music. Okay. And then in this music, we're going to click on loop. And then we're going to, this is probably something I should have done first because this is simpler than doing the code stuff. But I'm going to grab in some audio that I have just on my computer. Like I have amassed a bunch of like music and stuff over the years because I used to be a video editor. So I just got a bunch of open source. So I just have a bunch of music and a bunch of stuff just randomly. So I'm just going to try to find something really quick. And let's get cinematic atmosphere. Let's listen to this. Cool. This track is called Elder Ring. This is by Monument Studios. I think I got it a part of a Humble Bundle. So Humble Bundles are great if you want to get a part of a Humble Bundle. But let me show you a website that a lot of people use to get free music and free basically everything. It's called This Open Game Art. Or if you're a music person, you can just make your own music. But this website, Open Game Art, has so much free stuff, and it comes with a bunch of like open source licenses. So if you want to get music or get art or get 3D models or whatever, you could just come onto here and just check around. We could click browse, and there's 2D art, 3D art, concept art. Let's look at concept art. No, that's okay. Let's go to music, and then we have a bunch of different stuff, you know. So along with them, they also come with their own license. So this one is CC0, which is a public domain, which means you are free to use it. So just make sure whenever you download something to make sure to check the license. And you can just download it. It's so sick. Open Game Art. If you want to look for any type of art, music, 2D, 3D, it's all here. Check it out. I'm going to use this just because I paid for it and I haven't really used it. In order to make music, I'm just going to drag in the music from wherever you got it from your folder. And I have it here, Elder Ring, and we have this new audio source. And I'm going to click and drag into this audio resource and then just select a loop. And that's basically it. It's really simple. And whenever we want to add a music, we just basically just do that. And it's super simple. Then we click play. And now we should hear a guy walks towards you on the street and he's really scary. A guy walks towards you on the street and he's really scary. Okay, and you can hear it's a little bit loud, so we can go over to our music and then we can turn down the volume a bit. It's on a scale from 0 to 1, so it's normalized from 0 to 1. But I think that's fine right there, so let's click play again. A guy walks towards you on the street and he's really scary. Still a little bit too loud. I think that's good right there. It's probably too low for you guys because I turned on the desktop audio. But you'll notice I set it to 2.63. But when I click out of play mode, it does not save that position. So in order to save it, what I would recommend is whenever you click play, you can... If there's a lot of different... Okay, if there's a lot of different values that you're adjusting, you can just try to remember all of it. Or you could go up here to the top right and then click here. It says copy component. And then when you click out of play, you go top right here again and then paste component values just like that. And it will remember all of the different values that you changed. If you want to do it that way, or you could just copy. If you're just changing one thing, you of course just copy and then paste it whenever you're done going out of play mode. But things do not save in play mode. That's important to remember. If you change something during play mode, it's not going to save. So you have to reapply it after play mode. That is basically it. I really went through a lot of the code stuff. I wrote it in a way so it's easy for you to build on top of this. And really, I was hoping that this would be done by now, but it's taking forever. Jesus, it's taking forever. But we're not done yet because I did say that we were going to put this up on itch. And I hopefully sincerely do want to see you guys see what games you make. So in order to upload a game onto itch, we're going to go over here to your profile, go to your dashboard, and then we're going to somewhere create a project. And this is going to be live stream text adventure. Then we're going to upload the cover image, desktop. It's going to be this one. Boom. Make your game. Short description. Game made on live stream. And then you can add details. I created this game during a live stream as a tutorial. If you want to learn to make your own game, your own text adventure with voiceover and music. Really easy to use uh, text system, follow the tutorial below. Okay, and then this is going to be I think the closest thing is visual novel. There's no AI generated stuff in here. I made everything. And then we have to upload a project. We're going to change a few things. We're going to change this from downloadable to HTML. And that's basically it. If you want... Okay, that's it. So we finished with this so far. I'm going to now the thing that we have to do is actually we have to build this game out so it can actually be played on web. So in order to do that, like we did at the very beginning of the stream, we already changed this to web. So now we just have to do build and run. And like I mentioned before, if you're watching, if you skipped ahead and you didn't see what we did at the very beginning, what we did is we went to project settings. So if we go to edit, project settings, make sure that you disable this compression format over here. You're going to find it in player and then publishing settings. Make sure this compression format is set to disabled, or else Itch is just not going to be able to play your game. Okay. So we're going to build and run. We're going to make a new folder over here and we're going to name it build. And then we're going to go inside of it. And then this is going to be first build. So all of our builds are going to exist inside of this build folder. We're going to select this folder and then it's going to automatically build out our game for us. And then when it's done, it should generate it open in a, it should generate a new browser for us to actually play and test it. But we're kind of done. This was a 3-hour stream. This is going to be our victory lap of playing this game on Itch. And I 100% really want to see what you guys make. If you guys did follow along with the stream, I hope this was helpful. I tried to explain stuff in a way that a beginner would understand. I think some of it was complicated. For a beginner, we went through loops. We did a conditional statement. We did a couple of conditional statements and we made this. I think this section right here is really nice, really easy to use. And yeah, the whole story block system, I think this system is really expandable. I think it's great. I think it's great. I think you can really make something really great with this system. Really great. Like it, and it's very like code. It's not too code heavy. Once you have this system built out, you can really expand this to be such a great, it's just like a really solid foundation to make a really solid game, because it's not focused on the code, it's focused on the story, it's focused on the music, it's focused on the art. So if you feel like you have strengths in any of those fields, this whole tutorial will help you make like an actual like super solid game, not just something that is like, oh, I made a tutorial. It's like this game can be something really great if you put effort into any of those three or all of those three sections, you know, have voiceover, you have story, you have music. And you have art. I forgot about art. Voiceover, music, art, story. Yeah, voiceover. Okay, we're just waiting for it to load, to build. By the way, this text adventure okay, there's only 4 more. Jesus, it's taking forever. Jesus, I just want to show you how you can expand this out into into an actual thing. Because my very first game that I ever wanted to make was actually a text adventure, and it really ballooned up just because we had a whole bunch of different branches. But I don't, just because this was like a beginner tutorial, I don't want you to limit your ideas of what this can be. So I hope you don't. I hope you take this for like what it can be and not for what I did here, you know? And we're just waiting now. We are just waiting. While we're waiting, let's play all this music, huh? Play with media player. Try to make a game like Moonshire. What the heck is Moonshire? How do you check bugs in your game? Yeah, it depends. Gotta go. Need to find some food. Thanks for the stream. Cheers. No worries, brother. The stream is going to end here soon just because we're done. We finished. Hopefully. Three-hour... okay. This can really legitimately be like something that... like a first step into making like the thing that you want to make. It's very simple. It's a text adventure. But it can be something, you know? It can be something. Listen to the music. God, doesn't that inspire you? Hey, brother, here we go.
A guy walks towards you on the street and he's really scary. A guy walks towards you on the street and he's really scary.
Stop this music. Because this has its own music.
A guy walks towards you on the street and he's really scary.
Super cool.
And he's really scary.
Super cool. Okay. Yeah, this is our game. This is it. And now that we have this running and we confirmed that it works, let's go ahead and actually upload it. And the way that we're going to upload it is we're going to go into our folder structure and go to our repos, Unity 2D, Live Text Adventure. So we're here right now, right? We're going to go to our builds. We're going to go to our first build because that's where we saved it. And then we're going to get all of this data. We're going to right click. We're going to send to compressed zip. We're going to say build. We're going to just rename it build. Okay, now over here, we're going to click upload file. Okay. That's our desktop. And then you just want to navigate over to wherever you saved your project, to wherever you save the zip. Build, here we go. So here we go. We have this build zip. So we zipped all of our files inside of this one folder. We're going to open this zip. And then we're also going to change this viewport dimensions from, let me make this bigger just so you can actually see. We're going to change this viewport dimensions from 640 and we're going to change this to 1280, 720. And it is mobile friendly because Unity automatically with their buttons have touch input. So we don't have to worry about that. It's in landscape, not recommended for Unity games since they can lag the browser, which is fine. full screen button. We don't want that. Even if our game, even if you want people to play the game in full screen, Unity automatically adds in a little full screen button. So we don't have to add that in on itch itself. And then once we do that, we should be able to make this. Anyone can view the page. Okay, let's save. We're going to go here. Run game. And look, there's that full screen button.
A guy walks towards you on the street and he's really scary. A guy walks towards you on the A guy walks towards you on the street and he's really A guy walks towards you on the street and he's really scary.
There you go. Look at that. This game is now on itch. And we're going to go back. Now, I guess we have to save it and run it for one single time in order for us to make it public. But now we're going to just make this public, and you have a whole text adventure, and you can make this, you can put this up. I was really hoping to share the game that I had made with this idea in mind, but it doesn't look like we're going to be able to do that today, because it's taking a really, really long time. But now this game is up and you can actually play this game. Not much of a game, but you know, put some time, put some effort, make an actual interesting story, and you will have something that you can share and that you can be proud of. But for now, we're done. This is the end of the stream. I just want to see, I want to wait a little bit and see if we can actually get this to run. If not, thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for being with me. And I hope you follow along. And I hope you learn something. And I hope to see the game that you make following this this little tutorial stream. If you want to see more streams like this, where I'm like going through, this one was really geared towards like really beginners. So if you already know about loops and if you already know about if conditionals and you wanted me to make something a bit more complicated, we can absolutely do that. You know, I feel pretty confident in my ability to make whatever in Unity. So if you want to like a 3D platformer or a 2D platformer or isometric platformer or a it doesn't have to be a platformer, a first-person shooter, if you want, you know, a platformer. I've actually never made a platformer, so I don't know why I keep bringing that up. But whatever, literally whatever, depending on the scope of it, it would have to be something that we either like handle during multiple streams or something that we can handle like in one stream, one long stream like this one. But it's up to you guys. Let me know what you guys want. Yeah, I hope to, yeah, and some people were just asking questions about game development. So if you just want to stream where I just answer questions about game development, could absolutely do that as well. But I want to thank you guys again. Really excited to see what you guys come up with. Please send in the description or in the comments. Like just, I actually don't know if you can do stuff in the comments anymore. But just, yeah. Don't DM me. What is it called? On Twitter? No, not on Twitter. Am I on Blue Sky? I'll have my Blue Sky in the description. Send me the game you make on Blue Sky or something. Okay. Thank you. Thanks for watching. See you later. Bye.